Chapter 1723. Jian Qing roared unwillingly. Have you all become the dogs of the Genesis era? Isn't it enough to dominate the sword domain? Do you want to cut off all paths of retreat in this world? The 20 people in the air sneered, their eyes full of mockery and disdain. The leading purple-clothed sword king raised his head and laughed. Jian Qing, you are too naive. Winner takes all. I only ask you, will you hand over Lin Chen's men? I was just warning you, the next sword will not be so simple. The white-clothed Saint King sneered, a wise man submits to circumstances. Jian Qing, your decision will affect the lives of the entire ancient sword city. Don't seek your own destruction because of a little friendship. Lin Chen's servants had moved to this place, and some of them had returned to the sword domain. Some of them had been divined by some of the sword domain's divination masters. And it just so happened that the strongest rank 9 sect in the sword domain, the Eternal Sword sect, had a good relationship with the Genesis era. They had sent out a small number of elites to capture them. If they didn't hand them over, they would die. Very simple. Behind the Eternal Sword sect was the sky-bearing sword king, Zhao Lingtian. This person was the strongest swordsman in the 36 domains of the sacred boundary other than the sword god. He was also the only one who had reached sword intent connecting to God. In this era, without the sword god, the sky-bearing sword king was the strongest swordsman. Of course, excluding Jin Taichu. Why make things difficult for the people of Sword City? The dogs of the Genesis Alliance are always so cruel and violent. I don't care if I don't want my life, I will fight it out with you. At this time, the Pil Region's Elder Council, Yi Family, Realm Pagoda, Purple Cloud King Valley, and some of the servants and hidden experts had all appeared from the secret passage of Sword City. They were all ready to die, and they were all ready to fight to the death. There were a few servants at the peak of level 18-9 transformation stage who were ready to fight to the death, and they stood in front of the opposing Saint King. Purple-clothed Sword King raised his brows. You have finally appeared. Take you down, consider it my gift to the Genesis era. Zheng. With a dragon roar, he unsheathed his sword, and purple clouds tore the sky apart. With a sweep of his sword, the soft cloud light shattered everything. It was as if this sword could turn the world into ashes in an instant. The only people who could survive this sword strike would only be important people. Everyone was ready to face death head-on. Just as they were about to charge forward, the space trembled violently, and the cloud of light shattered into fragments of light that filled the sky. It was like the stars in the sky, beautiful and magnificent. All the Sword Dao experts were stunned. Sword King Tai's previous attack was enough to kill most creatures below half-step Saint Kings. Even a Saint King couldn't take it so easily. Who was it? Boom. Whoosh. At this moment, the clouds in the distance split apart. 2 vast palaces appeared from outside the immemorial Sword City, as if they were teleporting through the void. Bang, 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 bang. The young man stepped onto the top of the palace, and the 2 great palaces flashed and turned under his feet at an extremely fast speed. The experts of the Eternal Sword sect were dumbfounded. He actually drifted over with 2 palaces? How could he be so unconventional? Boom. When the Ice Heart Palace and God Flame Palace arrived outside the immemorial Sword City, a silver-robed man leaped into the sky and looked down at the experts of the Sword's Gate with a mocking smile. You are from the Genesis era? Very good, you are surrounded by me alone. The experts of the Sword's Gate, surrounded by one person? Little brother, you are really unconventional. Boom. Clang. Clang. Zheng. The saber light danced wildly, and the sword chi soared into the sky. The experts of the Sword's Gate were stunned. Damn, where did this brat come from? Fighting as soon as they met? Tai Gold King Sword. The purple-robed Sword King slashed out a golden path, and the golden light shook the sky. Sword of Innocence. Taishu Dragon Sword. With hundreds of sword strikes, The 20 experts of the Eternal Sword sect all used their ultimate techniques to block Lin Chen's attack. Pung! Pung! Lin Chen's Saint Dragon used the Taishi Divine Light to cover everyone, and they quickly retreated. Master! The servants shouted in surprise, and they were all overjoyed. They felt that they had reached a whole new level. Their master, who they had not seen for half a year, had grown to an unimaginable level. The red-haired beauty beside Jian Qing gazed at the man in her heart and was overjoyed. She felt happy from the bottom of her heart for his rapid increase in strength. In the team, Yi Qingwu waved her fists and shouted excitedly, "Lin Chen, why are you only here now? Quickly beat them up!" Master? Lin Chen? Tai Sword King, who barely managed to block Lin Chen's first attack, was stunned, and his face was filled with shock. "You are Lin Chen?" Lin Chen held the demon slaughtering spear in his hand, stepped on the cloud and laughed loudly. "Cut the crap, take my spear! If you dare to touch my people, you will have to prepare my big black spear." The spear danced, and the dark lightning in the sky danced like electric snakes, and the destructive lightning bolts shot down like electric dragons. Boom! Pung! 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 The electric dragon's spear light split into shadows and smashed down violently. The electric dragons pierced through the defenses of many Swords Gate experts, and their life-saving trump cards were used in the first exchange. Hiss! The people of Purple Cloud King Valley, Pill Domain, and Yi family gasped. What kind of combat power was this? Crushing a half-step king, a 9 Revolution Saint, and 3 Saint Kings in one exchange, and still having the upper hand. How monstrous had Lin Chen become in this half a year? Ling-er! Lin Chen shouted coldly, and Xiao Ling-er transmitted her voice to him. "Master, the barrier has been completed. Please fight to your heart's content." After saying that, a huge amount of spatial holy light flashed like silver light, and everyone under the protection of the Taishi Divine Light flashed 100,000 miles away in an instant. Pung! 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 When another series of explosions occurred, Tai Sword King and the 2 Saint Kings were once again hit by Lin Chen's clones in close combat. This time, Lin Chen aimed at the gap between their close combat range and instantly closed in with the speed of his movement technique. When he realized that Lin Chen actually had 5 clones, and that all of them had the Saint power of the Saint King realm, Tai Sword King immediately realized the seriousness of the problem. Retreat, just as he was about to tear space and sneak away. He realized that there was an invisible barrier that had completely cut off the space of the outside world. They couldn't find a gap to go to the outside world. They wanted to escape, but Lin Chen didn't give them the chance. It was the clones' close combat attacks that gave Lin Chen the best opportunity. Chrono Transcendence talent. The 3 clones smashed out with their palms. First, Tai Sword King and the 2 Saint Kings disappeared in an instant. Then, the other 2 phantom clones instantly turned into thousands of afterimages and sucked all the Swords Gate experts into the Chrono Transcendence plane. In the Chrono Transcendence, Lin Chen appeared with 7 phantom clones and looked down at all the people of Swords Gate. "I'll give you 3 breaths of time to kneel down and seal your acupoints. Explain the matter of Genesis, and I can spare your lives. Otherwise, die." A hint of killing intent flashed across Lin Chen's eyes. Tai Sword King laughed sinisterly. "It's just a special spatial saint artifact. What are you so proud of?" Lin Chen shook his head and said, "I've given you a chance. If you don't cherish it, then regret it in the Yellow Springs." Chapter 1724. Since they didn't surrender, Lin Chen would take the initiative to attack. Zheng. Lin Chen's incarnation slashed out with the heaven-opening sword, and the heaven-opening sword came crashing down. Immediately after, the doppelganger pulled the 9 heavens star thunder and shot out an arrow. In a flash, it split into 5. Krong. 1 Sword King, 2 Saint Kings, and 17 Swords Gate experts worked together to block Lin Chen's attack. Sword King Tai sneered, "Trying to kill us with this level of strength." Before he could finish his words, His pupils suddenly trembled. In the space above him, 5 lantern-like star clusters floated in the air around Lin Chen's incarnation, and the destructive aura made them feel the fear of death. The previous 4 Saint Kings were all defending with all their strength. This time, Lin Chen had already used 2 high-grade orange-level secret arts to distract them, and now was the time to circulate his saint power. Lin Chen laughed. Annihilation, star explosion, Krong. It was another day of nuclear destruction. Starlight shone in all directions, and smoke engulfed the realm. The energy of the star explosion evaporated into countless mushroom clouds, and the destructive energy spread out like a giant python. Seeing that Sword King Tai and the 2 half-step Saint Kings were still injured, Lin Chen didn't even bother to ask. He raised his hand and pulled out his saber, and he used God's tear. Sword Will of Tai. Sword King Tai spurted out blood, and he slashed out again, and the Sword Will of Void destroyed all the fragments of Lin Chen's saber chi. Lin Chen was surprised, and he mobilized his incarnation again to cast Annihilation, Star Explosion. Sword King Tai gritted his teeth and slashed out 3 sword wills to protect himself. Krong. The destructive aura of the Annihilation Star Explosion surged out again. When the smoke dissipated, 3 figures covered in blood were still standing in the energy storm. Lin Chen couldn't help but marvel. So this is the sword will of the Deshang stage, so strong. Lin Chen did not cultivate intent realms. Intent realms were roughly divided into early stage, middle stage, great success, and spirit realm. This Tai Sword King's attainments in sword intent were slightly inferior to Fong Ling's. On the other hand, if a Sword King used his sword intent, it would be a battle of life and death. Lin Chen's Annihilation Star Explosion, which was powerful enough to kill Saint Kings, actually failed to kill them 2 times in a row. Sword King Tai snarled, Lin Chen, if you kill us, Lord Zhao Lingtian will not let you go. If you let the 3 of us go now, you still have a chance. Lin Chen shook his head and laughed. We're all adults here. Don't be so childish. I've killed so many of your Swords Gate disciples. Do you think you'll let me go if I let you go and have some supper in Swords Gate? Clang. Lin Chen didn't use his spear. Wielding the heaven-freezing sword, he slashed out violently, and the 5 heaven-splitting giant swords fell straight down. Ignoring his injuries, Sword King Tai slashed his sword towards the sky, unleashing his last bit of sword intent to kill the giant sword in the sky. God's tear, heaven-burning arrow! Lin Chen's clone slashed out again. 9 clouds Star Fury drew his bow and shot out. In an instant, he split into 2 shadows and pierced through the defenses of the 2 kings. Following that, the saber light exploded. With endless saber chi fragments, they all killed the 3 of them. They crazily activated Annihilation Explosion and Annihilation Wound, sending them all on their way. The ultra spacetime plane was so powerful. In this place, all of Holy King's escape methods would be cut off. On this day, the entire Eternal Sword sect was shocked. The core Grand Elders, 2 Saint Kings, and a Sword King had all died at the same time. Host has received 12,400 top heavens path points, 9 billion saint-level health points, 40,000 fire energy, 20,000 saint-level rune energy, 20,000 saint-level cultivation technique essence, 9 billion set essence, 42 million intermediate strengthening points, 1 billion saint-level spirit. With the death of 3 Saint Kings, Lin Chen's attributes soared crazily. However, Lin Chen was no longer the same as before. The quantity and quality of the attributes dropped was directly proportional to the difficulty of the creatures killed by the host. Lin Chen frowned. Guys who have comprehended sword intent are really difficult to deal with. This was still sword intent at the great accomplishment stage. If it was sword intent connecting to God, Lin Chen's main body and 7 clones might not be a match for it. Lin Chen's eyes narrowed as he pondered. In the Founding Era Alliance, Jin Taichu and Jiang Pui are known as the strongest Saint Kings below the True God realm. They have reached the realm of Saber Intent per Icelandic and Sword Intent per Icelandic respectively. Lin Chen could predict that these two people were the most troublesome types of enemies. I also need experts of the same level to hold these two guys back. If I don't solve the problem of these two guys, I have no chance of winning against the Genesis Alliance. Thinking of this, Lin Chen suddenly smiled. Looks like I can only leave it to Fang Ling and Lang Fanyun. Host has received 2 exclusive orange-grade talent treasure chests, 1 special divine material fragment. At this time, the system screen popped up. Lin Chen was shocked. He had more than 10 orange-grade talent treasure chests. If he fused them now, there was a high probability of obtaining a top-tier orange-grade talent, or at least a high-tier orange-grade talent. After killing another 3 Saint Kings, Lin Chen's harvest could be said to be extremely abundant. Every human Saint King had gone through countless eras of accumulation, and their wealth was not to be underestimated. One of them was comparable to an entire grade 8 sect, or even more. Looking at the large number of treasures scattered all over the super spacetime realm, these were the treasures and accumulation of the Swords Gate experts' Providence plant pouches. After being killed by Lin Chen, they fell here together with the attribute light balls. Lin Chen opened the Providence plant pouch and took them all. He sighed helplessly. Fighting is the fastest way to accumulate wealth, this is indeed true. Unfortunately, if there were no such things, I'd rather not fight at all. I'd rather find a beautiful place to chat with beauties, practice my spear, and do some sports. Isn't it better to fight all day long? Damn it, humans have so many things to do. Lin Chen's incarnation quickly absorbed a large number of golden saint origin coins to recover his saint power. Every time he cast the star explosion, it would consume more than 100,000 saint origin coins. If it weren't for the battle, Lin Chen would try his best to recover his saint power with medicinal pellets or golden saint origin coins. After all, Lin Chen's saint origin coins were not enough for him to squander freely. In the ancient sword city, Lin Chen returned. Master! The servants that escorted the Dan region's elder council immediately clasped their fists and greeted respectfully. Yi Qing Wu flew over like a butterfly and circled around Lin Chen like a curious baby. She looked up and down and smiled slyly. Not bad, Brother Chen. I haven't seen you for half a year and you've become so strong? You've defeated all those people just now? You're really powerful. Lin Chen smiled mockingly. Who are you looking down on? I've already killed them. As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Yi Qing Wu and Yi Li Shui's eyes lit up. Killed them? That was 2 Saint Kings and a Sword King. The people from Purple Cloud King Valley and Boundary Tower praised in their hearts, but their faces were still filled with shock and amazement. In just half a year, Lin Chen had improved by leaps and bounds to such a heaven-defying extent. They more or less knew that when he challenged Divine Flame Palace and killed 4 Saint Kings and Een Son of Heaven, Lin Chen had paid a huge price. But now, Lin Chen had killed 3 Divine Kings and more than a dozen Rank 8 and Rank 9 sages. The current Lin Chen was no longer the same as before. Everyone present deeply felt that they were right to bet. That's right, now was the time to place their bets. They were on good terms with Lin Chen. If Lin Chen won against Genesis, they would benefit immensely. Chapter 1725. At this moment, Xiao Ling was overjoyed. She clapped her hands and said, Brother Fong Ling and the others are rushing back? Xiao Ling noticed that she'd improved, and she was filled with joy. Her beautiful eyes that were brimming with limpid autumn water stared at Lin Chen with tender feelings that were filled with worship and admiration. Even though she had a lot of experience, she couldn't suppress her excitement. If she didn't experience it herself, she wouldn't believe that her spatial divine art had improved by more than a few times. If it was before, she would have to wait at least 12 hours before she could sense that Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun were near the edge of the sword domain. Now, the two had just reached the edge of the sacred boundary, and she had already sensed it with her spatial divine art. The Lord's methods were heaven-defying. Hearing Fang Ling's name, Jian Cheng was enlightened. When we were in danger just now, we sent a message to Sir Fang Ling and the others. Jian Wuji, who hadn't seen for a long time, patted Lin Chen's shoulder and sighed. Kid, after so many years, you've become so strong. Lin Chen said humbly, Senior Jian Wuji, I can't take compliment. Please praise me more when you have time. Everyone laughed. Then, Lin Chen smiled and waved his hand. He looked around and said with a smile, Since they're back, everyone, let's take root in the sword domain temporarily. At this moment, Jiang Taishu suddenly said, My lord. Everyone looked at him. His expression was especially serious. He said in a deep voice, Although it's not appropriate for me to say this, Sir Fang Ling. Lin Chen raised his hand and interrupted him. Lin Chen smiled. I know what you want to say. You came out of the holy prison and followed me with your lives. I will also respond to your expectations. Lin Chen looked into the distance. He laughed loudly, overflowing with arrogance. I want the sword domain and saber domain's destiny to be completely liberated. From now on, as long as one's attainment is enough, all living beings in the sacred boundary and all sword cultivators with sincerity will be able to enter the divine realm of saber intent and divine realm of sword intent. Sword domain, eternal sword sect. Above the clouds, a cloud gate stood between heaven and earth. The white-robed man sat cross-legged in the clouds with a sheathless black sword beside him. The sword intent between his brows became even more exquisite and condensed. His sword intent was indestructible and had dominated the ages. There was a kind of supreme realm where one could do as one wished. This person was the current pinnacle of swordsmanship in the sacred boundary, the sky-piercing sword king, Zhao Lingtian. Sword intent connecting to divinity was the highest realm of the sword Tao, the ultimate realm to express one's strength. Those with divine sword intent could form 10,000 swords with a single thought and see through all things in the world. With a single thought, the sword intent would be released instantly, and it would break through anything that stood in its way. For example, if the user wanted to split an island apart, the sword intent would instantly split the island apart when this thought appeared in his mind. The sword intent followed the heart, arriving with a single thought. Nothing can stop it. Sword will and saber will were attached to the user's primordial spirit. Every time they were used, they would consume primordial spirit energy and saint energy. However, they could increase the power of any attack. Sword intent connecting to spirit and saber intent entering spirit were known as the strongest offensive techniques in the world. If they were attached to any swordsmanship or saber technique, they would be the most terrifying divine weapon. At this moment, only those who had reached the Saint King realm could clearly see the phenomenon above the sky-piercing Sword King's head. It was as if a divine dragon had descended to the world, and the dragon was spitting out a pearl. The dragon's tail was connected, and a vast dragon was entrenched in the sky of the sword domain. What was even more amazing was that there was a huge vortex spinning in the vast starry sky above the dragon. Inside the vortex above the dragon's head was a huge ancient door. Around the huge door, the bones of heroes were piled up like mountains. The tombstones of heroes were lined with feathers. There were too many heroic and legendary auras buried here, condensing and not dispersing. This was a scene that only Saint Kings could see. Saint Kings had opened 100 saint points, and the last one was located in the sacred eye point between their eyebrows. Only those with the sacred eye could see this scene. This scene was called the Gate of Providence. Other than powerful diviners, only the Saint King's sacred eye could see the Gate of Providence. Providence was the existence that balanced all things in the world. Ordinary people would never be able to understand or see the true appearance of providence in their entire lives. Providence was like water, and living beings were like fish. A fish without water could only move forward a few centimeters no matter how hard it slapped its tail. It was impossible for a fish to leap over the dragon gate and become a dragon, and the sword domain's providence was the key to the peri-celestial realm for sword saints in the sacred boundary. If the providence condensed and closed, sword saints in the sacred boundary would not be able to peek into the peri-celestial realm. Now, the sword domain's providence was sealed here. There was only one overlord here, the sky-piercing Sword King. Those who lost their providence would never be able to step into the Sword Tao omnipotent realm when the gate of providence never opened. Unless they had reached the Sword Tao omnipotent realm before the gate of providence closed. Suddenly, the sky-piercing Sword King, Zhao Lingtian, opened his eyes. His sword intent cut through the void and cut through the clouds. He said coldly, Tai Yi is dead? Together with the other two. Who dares to attack my sword sect? Boom. The sword intent split the heavens, splitting the sky into two halves. How dare you attack my sword sect? Die. Slash. The sword light was like a dragon, cutting through the sky. The number one Sword King in the sacred boundary had personally made a move. Founding Era Alliance headquarters. Ing Jiufeng stepped into the air and looked at the martial god clan who had just arrived. Ing Jiufeng glanced at them. The true Dragon Saint King seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He said calmly, "It's not the time to launch an all-out attack. Although they have recovered from their injuries, their saint points are still empty. They still need some time before they reach their peak state." Ing Jiufeng said coldly, "How much longer?" The true Dragon Saint King said, "At least 3 months, not including the large number of criminals in the sacred prison. Of course, if you can find me another 9th grade saint-level alchemist, this time can be halved." Ing Jiufeng frowned and flicked his sleeves. "Fine, 3 months it is. Summon all the 9th grade Saint Kings. This time, I want to destroy Lin Chen once and for all." The gathering of 12 9th grade sects and families would be the most earth-shattering battle in the history of the sacred boundary. Ing Jiufeng seemed to have thought of something. He smiled and said, "Also, send out messengers and invite the families and sects behind the 42 Saint Geniuses to send out their experts to help us take down Lin Chen and the others." As soon as he said that, the 1000-fox Saint King smiled. Next, the Saints' world would undergo a complete change. Lin Chen had massacred the Saint Talent Board. The result of this operation would not be so simple. Sword Realm, Ancient Sword City. Bang! Bang! Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun knelt down in shame. Everyone's mouth twitched. Damn it, the Saint King knelt down and admitted his mistake without hesitation. This scene was still shocking no matter how many times they saw it. "My lord, it's our fault. My lord, if you want our lives, there will be no second." Lin Chen face-bombed and raised his hand to stop them. "Stop, stop, stop. Stand up, each of you. You've been with me for so long, don't you know my temper? I'm not going to waste my time with you. It's over. Let's move on." The two looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Lin Chen continued, "Let me ask you, how's the inheritance going?" Fong Ling said, "It's going smoothly. The Immortal Dawn sect has been through the primordial age for thousands of years and has countless extraordinary people. Its foundation is even comparable to 4 9th grade forces and above. It has a total of 8 great inheritances, and we're currently obtaining 6 of them. Among them, Qi Fian, Shangguan Wudi, Yun Tianguang, Qin Zhouxiao, Situ Chongxing, and Jiang Wan are receiving inheritances or baptisms. Among them, there are a few who might break through and become Saint Kings." As soon as he said that, everyone was shocked. Breaking through and becoming a Saint King. With such a foundation, the Immortal Dawn sect was indeed one of the overlords of the primordial age. Chapter 1726. Lin Chen was amazed. If it were not for the Great War of the 9 clans, no one would have been able to annihilate a colossus like the Immortal Dawn sect. Lang Fanyun continued, Fong Ling and I were supposed to guard the place because the plane we were in was remote and far away. However, when we received the message, Jiang Wan had already come out of isolation, so we rushed back. Initially, we planned to pass the remaining 6 legacies to Ji Wuchen and Zi Qianqiu after they were done. However, we didn't expect it to happen so suddenly. If it weren't for my lord. Lin Chen smiled. I understand the gist of it now. However, no matter how strong a legacy is, it still needs time to master it. After you're done, bring me directly to the land of legacy. I'll lend them a hand. Then, Lin Chen said seriously, their opportunity has indeed arrived. As for your opportunity and future, I'll create it for you. Both of them were stunned. As if struck by lightning, their bodies trembled. Could it be that their lord? Lin Chen laughed heartily. You've been waiting for a long time, haven't you? The realm of sword will and the realm of transcendent saber will. Both of them trembled. Even someone as cold as Fong Ling revealed excitement, ecstasy, and anticipation. Yes, how many eras had they been waiting for? It was all for the sake of pursuing the realm of divine connection and transcendent. That realm was an absolute watershed. In fact, the reason why he chose to follow Lin Chen in the holy prison was because he wanted to gamble on him. They gambled that Lin Chen would lead them out of the holy prison. They gambled that Lin Chen could release their fate and create a new era. Lang Fanyan felt as if he was dreaming. Is this day finally coming? Lin Chen smiled. You've accumulated enough. However, you were harmed by a scoundrel back then, and the fate of the saber and sword regions was sealed. As long as your fate is released, you'll be able to ascend to that realm immediately. However, before that, I still need to make a small preparation for you. After all, our next opponent is the Sword King with the realm of Sword Will. The realm of Sword Will was not to be underestimated. In short, even if the first Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Palace and Shangguanju joined forces, they would still be defeated by the Supreme Sword King with the Divine Sword Will. Moreover, it was a quick defeat without any suspense. Not to mention, Sword King Qintian also had the Eternal Sword Sect, one of the strongest powers in the sword domain. Lin Chen said, since the other party has already made their move and is trying to take us down and join forces with Genesis, then there's no need for us to hold back. Gather our forces and fight our way over. You too, do you still remember what I told you last time? Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun were stunned. Immediately, they sat down with their legs crossed and began channeling their heart sutras and deducing their strongest sword and blade techniques in their minds. Xiao Ling waved her hand when she saw this, and her slender and jade-like fingers lightly moved, causing a spatial barrier to isolate and cover everyone. Host has activated a tribute transfer function, consuming heavenly Tao points. This time around, Lin Chen had strengthened both their mental cultivation techniques and skills to the maximum possible level. This was also one of the reasons why Lin Chen did not upgrade the Annihilation Star Explosion immediately. He needed to increase the overall strength of the team by several levels. Systematize all personnel. It was that simple and crude. And these 2 sacred weapons. Lin Chen stared at the fatal heavenly saber and ultimate Ju sacred sword floating in front of him and smiled playfully. Smack! Lin Chen snapped his fingers, beginning to strengthen a specified grade 9 sacred weapon, consuming 28812 strengthening points. The 2 sacred weapons began to glow with extreme brilliance and soared all the way, strengthening a grade 9 sacred weapon. The corners of Lin Chen's mouth rose crazily. Damn it, Genesis, this time, I will strengthen 17 cultivation techniques and a grade 9 sacred weapon. I want to see if your team or mine is better. Dragon Realm. 15 primordial dragon clan higher-ups actually gathered together for a private meeting. The current 25 primordial dragon clans formed the main force of the Dragon Realm, and each clan's ideology was completely different, so there were often conflicts and clashes. If the dragon clans controlled by the 10 great dragon kings were said to hate humans, then the current 15 primordial dragon clans were said to be rational, and they pursued more possibilities. That day, after bidding farewell to Lin Chen, there was an uproar in the dragon realm. The reason was that more than 50 divine dragon descendants had their bloodlines soared and raised by another level. This was unprecedented in the original history. Even the dragon god would not be able to do such a thing. At extinct Dragon Mountain, the dragon clan elders and dragon kings gathered at the peak. Today, the situation is no longer comparable to the past. If we miss the tide of the era, we will no longer have the chance to regret it. That's right, we should see more possibilities. Lin Chen is a person who dares to fight, and disdains to associate with evil. Even the wills of the 7 divine dragon ancestors have recognized him, which proves that he is the light of the dragon clan. This kid can easily enhance the bloodlines of more than 50 of us in an instant, which proves that he even has the ability to enhance all of our bloodlines. The primordial dragon clan higher-ups were in an uproar. Moreover, Lin Chen is not afraid of anything. He is obviously the type who is amenable to coaxing but not coercion. That's right, competing with Lin Chen is no different from competing with the Machine King. He is overestimating himself. We should try to reason with him. I've already received news that he's caused a huge ruckus in the Saints' world. Even someone as powerful as the Saints' prison wants to deal with him. Even more human forces are targeting him. Right now, Lin Chen is surrounded by enemies from all sides. In addition, the gods have left. Now is the best time to enter the human sacred boundary. This is the best time to help Lin Chen and the only chance to befriend him. But you have to think clearly. We have an agreement with the human clans. We cannot cross the boundary. Otherwise, the humans will gang up on us. Then let them gang up on us. It just so happens that we can also share the pressure for Lin Chen. Think about it. After Lin Chen defeats the Founding Century Alliance, who will be the one who has the authority to speak in the sacred boundary? It will be Lin Chen. At that time, so what if we don't abide by the agreement? If Lin Chen wins, he will be the rule. The higher-ups and dragon kings became more and more excited as they discussed. Their opinions might not be the same, but at least they had the same goal. All of them wanted to befriend Lin Chen. It was better to provide timely assistance than icing on the cake. This is an opportunity. It is worth our gamble. Finally, a great dragon king personally stepped forward. It was the great dragon king of the extreme hell water divine dragon. She wore armor and a crown, looking valiant and heroic. The white jade beads on her crown clashed against each other, and her snow-white face revealed the natural demeanor of a king. She slammed the table and said sternly, "I don't care about your opinions on this operation. I am willing to send a dragon king and 4 revered dragons to assist Lin Chen." Ah, Extreme Hell Dragon King, you are really generous. You can't be polite to my race. I will also send a dragon king, 3 revered dragons, and a dragon guard. Humph, I will personally bring people to him. I don't believe he won't remember this favor. TSK, you are too young. Not only will I go personally, but I will also bring my race's princess over. What? Are you trying to cause trouble? Alright, my myriad fire divine dragon race will also send a few dragon dukes over. Damn you, who are you looking down on? Do you believe that I will order all the beauties in my race to be sent over as well? The descendants of the divine dragons outside the peak were stunned. The dragon world was in an uproar because of a human. Chapter 17:27. Some descendants of the divine dragons even twitched their mouths and covered their faces in shame. These dragon kings, and dragon elders, who used to be highly respected in the past, were all fighting for Lin Chen. Their faces and necks had all turned red. It was fine if they went to help. Good Lord, at the end of the fight, they wanted to give him beauties and treasures. Those who didn't know would think that they wanted to propose marriage. Suddenly, for some reason, as they fought, some of the dragon elders suddenly realized that there were fewer people. What's going on? Where's the old fiend? Even the old fiend is gone. Are they not going to help? No, they're running away. The stupid dragons are still fighting, but the smart ones have already started to go back and bring the dragons with them to find Lin Chun. Damn. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. I'm going back to bring people. I'll lead you. The 10 dragon kings, who were standing outside the peak, were furious when they heard the conversation of the desolate era dragons. They almost cursed. The dignified dragon race actually had to wag their tails and beg a human for a favor. This was too king shameful for their ancestors. The supporters and the opponents started to fight again. After thousands of years, the dragon world finally started to boil. 15 days later. Sacred boundary, 1,000 domains. Hundreds of sects contended for glory, and the 1,000 domains had many different sects with different characteristics. Today, Qian Yingxue from the Wuji Palace came to visit the Yuehua Baiyang sect, a 9th-rank sect in the 1,000 domains. Baiyang sect, Moon Pavilion. The Yuehua sect master was wearing a beautiful palace dress. He smiled and said, "Haha, thank you for informing us today, Yingxue. My sect will make sufficient preparations. It's our fortune to be able to establish a relationship with the Wuji Palace." Qian Yingxue bowed slightly and smiled. "Senior, you must be joking. I'm just passing on great-grandfather's orders." Crack. At this moment, a crisp cracking sound was heard. The Yuehua sect master and Qian Yingxue were shocked. A lazy and devilish voice echoed in the void. "This is the human race? It's so boring. Why isn't there anyone here?" The Yuehua sect master's eyes narrowed. She was the sect leader of a 9th-rank sect, and she was only one step away from becoming a Saint King. Even someone as strong as a veteran Saint King would not be able to sneak into the Baiyang sect without making a sound. Whoosh! With the spear in her hand, Qian Yingxue's battle intent soared. She looked valiant and cold as she faced the faintly discernible figure in the air. A young man with a pair of red wings stepped out of the clouds. In a split second, the entire sky was dyed blood red. His murderous intent shot through the sky. Qian Yingxue and the Yuehua sect master exclaimed in unison, "Demon race!" The demon race dared to enter the sacred boundary? How could there be such a daring demon? No. The Yuehua sect master's beautiful eyes trembled as she said in a trembling voice, "This demon has the aura of a demon emperor. Moreover, it was very pure. He's the first direct descendant of the devil emperor's son. Could it be? The son of the demon emperor?" The red-winged demon laughed sinisterly. "It's been a long time since I sucked the providence of a human sect. This time, I'm going to suck them dry completely." Ah! A red eye appeared between his brows. He looked down at the sacred and majestic Yuehua sect beneath his feet, opened his arms, and laughed maniacally. "Weak humans, I'll give you a chance. One move. If your entire sect can take one move from me, I'll let you off. If not, die." The red-winged youth's maniacal laughter was accompanied by billowing demonic aura. It reverberated through the clouds within a radius of a few million miles, shaking heaven and earth, and shattering the space. At this moment, countless hidden powerful figures of the Yuehua sect were shocked and came out of seclusion. Qian Yingxue's heart palpitated, and she revealed a rare look of fear. This demonic aura. It can't be wrong. It's already comparable to the 10 people on the Saint Talent roll. The Yuehua sect master shouted coldly, "Everyone, listen to my orders. Fight the enemy at all costs." The son of the demon emperor appeared in the 1,000 domains. He had single-handedly challenged a 9th-rank sect. Blood realm, rumble! A beam of holy light shot into the sky and turned into a meteorite-like ray of light. The aura vibrated. At this moment, the entire sacred boundary was shaken. Another sage king had fallen. The enchanting figure was wearing a red dress. 2 red snakes were coiled around her slender waist, spitting out their tongues. She was as beautiful as a concubine. She walked in the air, and a group of figures with overwhelming demonic aura followed behind her. However, she wiped the blood from her lips nonchalantly and chuckled. The blood of a sage king and the marrow of a sage king's bones are really delicious in the demon realm. The gods are not here, but the demon race is here. I'm really looking forward to seeing how delicious that human Lin Chen's blood is. Heavenly demon supremacies, continue to search for Lin Chen's whereabouts. Yes. The moment the Blood Realm Sage King fell, the entire world was shaken. The various 9th-rank sects in the 36 regions finally realized the seriousness of the problem. Sword Realm, the highest sky of the ancient Sword City. Jiang Taishu sat cross-legged in the void, staring at the disappearing stars of providence in the sky. He pinched his fingers and made a few calculations. Then, his expression changed slightly. Heavenly demon supremacy has appeared, and not just one. There are at least 10 of them. There are even a few demon race scents that are especially strange. This providence is like a demon emperor covering the sky. I have never heard of or seen anything like this before. I must inform the Lord immediately. Inside the ancient Sword City, Lin Chen met with Yi Lixue, Yi Qingwu, and the people from Purple Cloud King Valley. After hearing Yi Lixue's words, Lin Chen was shocked. The closing of the Sword Realm and Saber Realm's Gates of Providence has something to do with the top 10 on the Talent Saint ranking? Yi Lixue's cold face was solemn. She said seriously, "Yes, if you want to open the Sword Realm's Gate of Providence, you will offend the top 10 on the Talent Saint ranking." Lin Chen thought for a while and then said jokingly, "Since Auntie knows, why did you ask me to kill Chu Taixian from the Saber Realm?" Yi Lixue said helplessly, "I didn't ask you to act now. Who knew that you would have to act so soon? I estimate that you will need at least 3,000 years to equal or surpass him." Little Demon Empress Yi Qingwu muttered to herself and clenched her hands. Chu Taixian, is this the person who caused Mother's bloodline to be in such despair? Saber Realm Chu Taixian. This person was also an ancient legend in the top 10 on the Talent Saint ranking. In front of Lin Chen, Purple Cloud King Valley, Shangguanju, and the others, Yi Lixue revealed the secret of many years. Yi Lixue was born in the Heavenly Sanctuary. Yi Lixue's grandmother was the descendant of the Saber Realm's true god's concubine. After that, after the War of the 9 Families, the true god's whereabouts were unknown. The descendants of the Yi family's grandmother suffered greatly and became living sacrifices because of their bloodline. Yi Lixue's grandmother had the bloodline of a god. What was mysterious was that after the Yi family's god's blood interbred with other gods' descendants, there was a certain probability that they would obtain a mysterious bloodline mutation. They would be like tigers that had grown wings on their original god's blood and obtain new abilities, and to a large extent, it would nourish the cultivation of the male god's descendants. So, the Yi family was the true sacrifice. The Yi family was raised like livestock by the Saber Realm's Chu family. They constantly reproduced, and their mission was to give birth to more descendants for the Chu family and other families' gods' descendants. The Yi family, who were completely raised as tools for reproduction, was once used as the currency for the Chu family to befriend other gods' descendants. The women of the Yi family had one of the most outstanding talents, but they lived worse than pigs and dogs. And the Yi family's male descendants and untalented female infants would be abandoned or killed. Yi Lixue was one of them who was abandoned later. Even someone as strong as Yi Lixue would feel pain and weakness whenever she talked about this memory. So when she entrusted it to Lin Chen, she felt so heavy. This was the path of revenge that belonged to her and the countless descendants of the Yi family. It was the meaning of her life that she had walked step by step until today. After that, Yi Lixue rescued even more useless abandoned children from the Yi family and established the successor Yi family. Then, she met the Purple Cloud King Valley. However, The scars of the Yi family were forever imprinted on Yi Lishue's body. She had always kept the hatred in her heart until Yi Qingwu's arrival gave her new hope. The god's blood in Yi Qingwu's body caused the bloodline to revert to its ancestor. At one point, it even surpassed the Yi family's grandmother. And if Yi Qingwu married a descendant with the god's blood, her cultivation and aptitude would undergo a huge change. Moreover, her descendant would be an extremely strong holy infant who would have the aptitude to enter the saint talent rankings. Yi Lishue did not know the background of an ordinary god's descendant. It was beyond her control, so she chose the Zhao family, who had the background of a god's descendant. According to her original plan, after Yi Qingwu married into the Zhao family, her child would be Yi Lishue's greatest hope for revenge. It was only when he met Lin Chen that everything changed. After listening to Yi Lishue's experience, Shang Guanju sighed. She sighed, if the godly Flame Palace accepted Wu Piange's plan, I'm afraid they would end up like the second Yi family. Lin Chen smiled playfully. It seems like I have to settle this in one go. No worries, I'll take on the sword domain first, then the knife domain. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked to the core. Lin Chen was actually going to challenge the most ancient dual-domain overlord of the 36 domains. Chapter 1728. Kaboom! At this moment, a sharp sword and saber intent pierced through the clouds. These two intents were far beyond great accomplishment stage and infinitely close to saber intent and sword intent. Lin Chen raised his eyebrows and smiled. Looks like they've completed it. Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun were out. Their sacred artifacts, mental cultivation techniques, and techniques had all been strengthened. Their combat power was complete. It was time. Swoosh. At this moment, Jiang Taishu walked into the hall and said respectfully, "My lord, I have something to report." Lin Chen said, "Could it be that a sage king died recently?" Jiang Taishu nodded. "Yes, the death of this sage king is related to demons. Demonic aura is everywhere." Lin Chen's interest was piqued. "You mean this saint king was killed by the devil race?" Lin Chen was not surprised that a sage king died. He used to think that there were very few sage kings because he had not come into contact with them. Now that he stood at the peak of the sacred boundary, and the situation had completely changed compared to before, it was not strange for one or two sage kings to die. But if it was related to the demons, then forget it. The sacred boundary was the territory of the humans. What kind of concept was it for the demons to kill a sage king in the human territory? Jiang Taishu said seriously, "That's right. My lord, it's best to be careful. The death of a sage king this time is no small matter. Not only are there signs of the heavenly demon venerable appearing in the sacred boundary, but I've also deduced that more than 3 types of demonic aura have appeared. The demonic aura is noble. It's the emperor of demons, equivalent to the demon emperor." Demon emperor? Lin Chen rubbed his chin and chuckled. "Looks like my reputation has reached such a level. I'm really flattered. At my age, I have to bear the pressure of being handsome that I shouldn't bear. It's so annoying." After saying that, Lin Chen stood up. His gaze was sharp. "Let's not care about the demons for now. If they want to cause trouble, it will involve Genesis. Since they want to pass off the fish eyes as pearls, we will go straight to the root of the problem. Let's go. This time, it's our turn to attack. Taishu will cover our aura. Let's go to the Eternal Sword Sect." Eternal Sword Sect, Main Sword Hall. Today, the 3 Sword Kings of the Eternal Sword Sect had gathered. The Sky-High Sword King had personally come out of seclusion. The remaining 2 Saint Kings of Swords Gate were also summoned by Sword King Qingtian. In addition to the 3 Saint Kings that died earlier, there were now 4 Sword Kings and 4 Saint Kings in the Eternal Sword Gate. Such a foundation would be considered top-notch even among rank 9 sects. Zhao Lingtian sat on the seat of the Hall of Swords, he said coldly, taking down the ancient sword city has led to the death of the elder council of our Sword's Gate. This is a great humiliation to us. I will personally lead a team and send out all of my men to kill this brat." As soon as he said this, the expressions of the kings changed slightly. An old sword king with white hair and a youthful face said worriedly, "My lord, the Saint Talent Board has requested for you to stay in Sword's Gate for a long time." Zhao Lingtian glared at him coldly. "Are you asking me to do something? Others have already fought their way into the sword domain. Killing this king's men, where is my face?" Ah! Suddenly, the young man's laughter reverberated in the sky, awe-inspiring and domineering. "Your face? From the moment you decided to join hands with the Genesis Alliance, you have already been fed to the dogs. No, I should say that when you monopolize the fortune of the sword domain and block the advancement of all the swordsmen in the world, you have no face to speak of." A group of figures tore through the void and appeared. It was Lin Chun and the others. This time, Lin Chun brought along the Celestial Flame Palace's Grand Supreme Elder, Fong Ling, Lang Fanyun, Lin Ping'an, and 6 of his incarnations. It was not a lot of people, but they were all the strongest forces that Lin Chun could mobilize now. The last incarnation was left behind to guard the rear. The sword will connecting God was not to be underestimated. This time, they were not going to defeat him, but to kill him. To kill the strongest sword king of the sword domain, they had to use their trump card right from the start. Zhao Lingtian led the men and left Sword's Gate. He hovered in the air and looked at Lin Chen from afar. He sneered and said, "You are Lin Chen? And Fong Ling, Lang Fanyun, I didn't expect you guys to be able to escape from the Saint prison." Fong Ling said calmly, "Don't act like you are in control of everything. Have you forgotten how you followed behind me and asked for my guidance? If it weren't for you and that old monster who framed me and sent me to prison, you would still be a little brother in front of me." Fong Ling clenched the sword hilt on his back and said calmly, "That old monster is dead. The next one is not far away." Zhao Lingtian laughed and said, "A real man doesn't boast about his past achievements. Now that you are a Saint King, you want to challenge me? Do you think you can settle the score with me?" Fong Lingjian's will surged and he said coldly, "No, I am only following my master to kill the enemy." Zhao Lingtian glanced around and said in surprise, "Pain Disaster and Celestial Flame Palaces Xianyu? Even you want to fight with me?" "Celestial Flame Palace's Elder Xianyu said calmly, "I am not here to fight with you, I am here to kill you." Ha 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 ha. Qing Tian Sword King was as if he heard the funniest joke in the world. Kill him? Back then, he was one of the top 10 on the Saint Talent ranking and had already become a Saint King. He was one of the top Saint Kings and had mastered the highest level of swordsmanship. Unexpectedly, Lin Chen pushed Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun away. "Damn it, why are you still talking to him? Let's hit him in the face first." Lin Chen's palm was filled with 9-colored starlight. He raised his hand and threw the 9 tribulations star at Zhao Lingtian. Whoosh! A beam of 9-colored aurora split into 5 streaks of meteors and fell down. 9 tribulations star at the start. This was Lin Chen's most powerful killing move. Zhao Lingtian narrowed his eyes, and a peerless sword will appeared between his eyebrows. He held the sword and stabbed, turning and slashing. Kaboom! Bam! 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 A strange scene appeared. Lin Chen's 9 tribulations stars, which had split into 2, were all chopped into pieces and fell into the endless cracks in the vacuum. "Be careful, my lord!" Fong Ling shouted. Splat! The sword will came at lightning speed. Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun used their sword will to protect everyone. Lin Chen and the 3 doppelgangers were affected by the sword will. Whoosh! As the sword will passed, Saint blood spilled. All of Lin Chen's doppelgangers were injured even though they had activated the golden jade garment. Lin Chen's real body was not injured, but the star-chasing heavenly morning robe on his shoulder had a sword mark. Lin Chen's eyes narrowed. This guy, what a freakish strength! Just in terms of cultivation, he had already surpassed Grand Elder Xian Yu of the Godflame Palace. With the help of sword intent connecting to God, he actually directly destroyed his 9 tribulations star. He did not destroy it, but cut it into nothingness. Not only that, but even his doppelgangers were injured. A sinister smile appeared on Zhao Lingtian's cold face. To be able to force me to use my sword will at the beginning, Lin Chen, your strength is indeed extraordinary. Today, you came to me willingly, which is exactly what I wanted. Today, I will let you know what it means to be the strongest sword king. Watch how I destroy your defensive saint weapon. Zi Chenenji. The sound of the sword turned into a dragon's roar. Zhao Lingtian's sword was like a ferocious dragon as it struck. Be careful, my lord. Let us stop him. Lang Fanyun and Fong Ling unsheathed their sabers and swords and slashed forward like a pair of scissors. The sabers and swords clashed together. Kaboom! The two of them unleashed their half-step imminent deity and peri-celestial sword will and saber will, clashing head-on with Zhao Lingtian. The terrifying aura split the sky millions of miles in the east of Sword Realm. Zhao Lingtian shouted coldly, "Swords Gate, take down Lin Chen, dead or alive." Chapter 1729. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. The 2 Saint Kings and 2 Sword Kings of Swords Gate suddenly appeared and charged towards Lin Chen. Lin Chen immediately said, "Senior Ping En, I'll leave them to you." The 2 nodded and Lin Ping En pouted. She still wanted to fight with the strongest enemy. It wasn't that Lin Chen didn't trust Lin Ping En, but Zhao Lingtian's sword will was too sharp. Ordinary experts would be sliced by the sword will if they weren't careful. Nothing could stop the sword. Other than Fong Ling, who had the same level of sword will and saber will, only Lang Fanyun and the other 2 could barely block it. Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun's battle prowess had increased by leaps and bounds. After their saint weapons and arts were strengthened, their battle prowess had at least doubled. But against Qing Tian Sword King, they were only able to hold their own? The battle between the 3 shocked the entire sword domain. Lin Chen frowned and thought to himself, what a guy! A sword king with godlike sword intent is actually this strong. If I had continued to fight after successfully stealing from the Genesis headquarters, I'm afraid that Jin Taichu and Jiang Poi would have been enough to deal with me. On the other side, when Lin Ping and an Elder Xian Yu stopped the 2 Sword Kings and 2 Saint Kings, the east of the sword domain was filled with the aftermath of the battle. When Lin Chen looked up, he could vaguely feel that there was something in the sky of the sword domain. That's right, it was fate. Although Lin Chen had 100 saint points, half of them were virtual saint points. In terms of battle prowess, he was comparable to a saint king. But in terms of cultivation level, to be precise, he hadn't opened the eye of Saint King. Thus, Lin Chen couldn't see the existence of fate. However, Jiang Taishu told him that as long as he attacked the point where the fate was the most concentrated and blasted open the gate of fate, the fate of the sword domain would be completely released like the other domains. Shua. Lin Chen couldn't care less about the other battles. He activated his movement skill and rushed straight towards the gate of fate. 2 of his 6 avatars immediately moved to stop the remaining experts of the Eternal Sword sect, not giving them a chance to disturb him. Clang! Suddenly, a sword hum resounded, and a peerless sword intent that had transformed into a white dragon slashed down from the 9 heavens. Lin Chen was caught off guard. He used his movement technique at lightning speed, and his 4 clones used their ultimate techniques to attack the white dragon sword will. Heaven-burning arrow, divine bird swallows the sea. Slowing rune, 9-fold burning sky palm. Lotus dance. Dark lightning 10,000 June. Spear light flashed, and saber light and sword shadows danced in the sky. Bang, bang, bang. The sword will exploded and Lin Chen retreated rapidly. His eyes narrowed. He couldn't hit it? Ha ha. Lin Chen, Do you really think that this king is only cultivating in seclusion? Zhao Lingtian's laughter was wild and arrogant. While he was killing Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun with a sword in his hand, he sneered ferociously, "The gate of destiny of the sword domain has already accumulated the sword wills from my seclusion for 100 eras. Every sword will is comparable to the attack of multiple saint kings. Lin Chen, how are you going to break my sword domain's destiny? I have already sent a voice transmission to the other top 10 saint talents on the saint talent list. They are also the controllers of a portion of fate. You are courageous to provoke the Genesis Alliance, but if you dare to provoke the sword domain's sword sect, you are courting death. As long as the saint talents have their eyes on you, you will definitely die." Zhao Lingtian's wild laughter made Lin Chen narrow his eyes as he looked at Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun. Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun weren't weak. It was just that the experts they faced previously were very strong. For example, the Einherjar of the Einherjar clan didn't even have a saint weapon back then, so they couldn't fight back. But now, there was a qualitative difference. Firstly, the saint weapon had returned. Secondly, their techniques and saint weapons had all been strengthened by leaps and bounds. They were no longer the same as before. As for the sword will and saber will, they were the closest to peri-celestial and immanent God. Zhao Lingtian couldn't suppress them when they worked together. Zhao Lingtian continued to laugh sinisterly. "Before my sword will is exhausted, it is comparable to dozens of powerful saint kings guarding here and attacking together. If you want to release the sword domain's destiny, you will have to find 100 saint kings first." "Ah!" Lin Chen shouted coldly. "Fong Ling, Lang Fanyun, beat this son of AB*TC. Don't talk nonsense for him." "Roger!" The two received the order and brandished their sabers and swords. With a clang, their attacks instantly multiplied. Zhao Lingtian was immediately forced to fight with his full strength by the two who were almost going all out. Lin Chen turned around and faced the peerless sword will that gradually revealed itself in the surging sea of clouds above the sky. The sword wills were almost tangible. They were blank and distinct, covering the sky and earth. There were actually layers of sword webs. And what formed the sword webs were actually peerless and sharp sword wills. There were a total of 3 layers of sword webs, and each layer's sword will was even stronger. Lin Chen's eyes bloomed with powerful boldness and confidence. He smiled coldly. "Equivalent to a group of Saint Kings? Then I will destroy them all. Saint Dragon Possession. 1. Lin Chen's pure strength suddenly soared from 600,000 to 990,000. Lin Chen laughed wildly. "You came at the right time. After killing so many Saint Kings and Saint Geniuses, all 5 of my God of War set have reached 88% energy. I have nowhere to use them. God of War set, fully activate." A ray of God of War's golden light was dazzling, illuminating the sky. Lin Chen's battle-intent sword, and his divine light was unparalleled. Boom, boom, boom. The peerless divine light that crossed the sword realm surged out from Lin Chen's body. 1 million saint powers, 2 million saint powers, 3 million saint powers, 4 million saint powers. It reached 5 million saint powers, and it was still rising. The space between heaven and earth trembled, and the airflow turned into a whirlpool. With Lin Chen as the center, pure strength was released, and it shattered the surroundings. Lin Chen's pure strength continued to soar like a hurricane. F***CK your sword. You want to dominate the chi flow? Open for me. Lin Chen raised his fist and punched toward the sky. The golden light of the God of War shot out from his fist, and it crushed the stars and shattered the universe. The sea of sword intent in the void sensed it, and it immediately shot down a large amount of sword intent. The void of sword intent was sharp, and it could be said to be the most terrifying wave of attacks in the world. Without saying a word, Lin Chen's clone followed closely behind and immediately launched an attack. Boom! Bang! Bang! Lin Chen and his clone faced the wave of sword intent head-on, and their fists shattered the sword intent. Lin Chen's pure strength soared all the way to 6 million saint powers, and it was still more. It still did not stop. Life and death are nothing. If you don't accept it, then fight. What the hell is this eternal sword sect? Open for me. Lin Chen, who was clad in golden armor and glowing with golden light, advanced triumphantly. His legs were as ferocious as a wild dragon, and his aura could swallow the world. Every strike shattered the sky and cleared away a piece of turbidity. His punches were as tyrannical as the stars, and they pierced through the universe. Every punch could turn the sword intent into stars in the sky. In the sky above the sword realm, terrifying and devastating explosions were constantly reverberating. Every strand of sword intent that was shattered was still surging in all directions. Lin Chen's aura was overbearing, and it was as if it could swallow the world. The sword intent that was in his way crushed all that stood in his way, and it shocked the many experts and elders of the Sword's Gate. Is he still human? He actually destroyed countless omnipotent sword intents, and that was the peak of the Sword Tao. Chapter 1730. Sword Region, Hao Ran Palace. Today, Hao Ran Palace's palace master and his grand elder were discussing a plan to retreat. Now that Sword Region was dominated by one sect, their providence was cut off, and all the sects in Sword Region were suppressed. Even if all the rank 9 sects in Sword Region worked together, they would not be able to open the door of providence. Very simple, they could not defeat the Eternal Sword sect. The Sky-High Sword King could crush all the other Sword Kings. The strongest Sword King, his sword intent was divine. Since ancient times, other than the sword gods that were born in Sword Region, no one could be compared to him. In addition, the Eternal Sword sect wanted to be on good terms with the Genesis era. Once this trend was out, all the rank 9 sects moved. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a sudden spatial vibration attracted Hao Ran Palace Master's attention. That direction is. Hao Ran Palace Master looked into the distance and activated his sword intent. When he looked into the void, his expression changed drastically. Eternal Sword Sect? Someone actually started a war in their territory? Who was it that dared to draw their sword against the Eternal Sword Sect? Let's go take a look. Sword Region, Jade Sword Pavilion. The pavilion master, who was in seclusion, suddenly opened his eyes. A formless sword intent split the void as he looked 1,000,000 miles away. His eyes narrowed. Good fellow, there is actually someone who dares to draw their sword against the Sky-High Sword King. Today, I want to see which hero has the guts to do so. Rumble. The Jade Sword Pavilion Master turned into a Jade Dragon sword light and flew 100,000 miles away. Sword Region, Divine Sword Valley. The white-haired old man holding the sword trembled slightly. The dust on his old body that had been sleeping for hundreds of eras started to melt like snow in the morning sun. He bathed in the spring and shone brightly. He stood up. His old eyes were as sharp as swords as he looked into the distance. The old man said hoarsely, "Who is it?" "Saber intent, sword intent." "No. That terrifying wave of sword intent is dissipating." He was surprised. His figure gradually disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already hundreds of thousands of miles away. It was as if he had teleported. On this day, the battle of the Eternal Sword Sect had shocked the entire Sword Region. All the big shots of Sword Region had come. They were really curious as to who dared to attack the sky-risking Sword King. The number of 8th rank sects in the Sword Realm was one of the highest. If it were not for the fact that the 8th rank sects did not have enough resources to watch the battle, they would even be willing to personally witness this historic moment. Regardless of success or failure, at least in this world, there was still someone who dared to challenge the strongest Sword King. Hall Master Hao Ran and a group of elders, Divine Sword Valley Elder, Jade Sword Pavilion Master, Taiji Palace Chief Elder. When the experts arrived, Palace Master Hao Ran's eyes widened and his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. The Jade Sword Pavilion Master's pupils shrank as he felt his scalp go numb. Oh my god of swords! Is this really something a human would do? Their gazes were fixated on the figure shining with golden divine radiance above them. His fist shattered heaven and earth, and his legs swept across the galaxy. Every punch and every kick was ferociously and savagely bombarding that wave of sword intent. Bang! 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 Streaks of peerless sword intent that could injure or even kill Saint Kings, manifesting supreme sword techniques from the primordial age, struck down one after another, and all of them were destroyed by a single punch. Lin Chen's pure strength, which exceeded 6 million honorable powers, directly shook the Sword King's wave of sword intent. Lin Chen had previously used the God Slayer talent to temporarily enter the God Slayer state, and the saint power he unleashed was comparable to 6 million honorable powers. However, using saint power required the use of battle techniques, and pure strength did not. Pure strength could be used at the fastest speed to unleash the highest explosive power. It was as if Lin Chen was using his doppelgangers to protect himself, and his fists smashed through the thousands of sword intents as he violently attacked. Lin Chen's aura was like a hot knife through butter, and his pure strength actually soared to 7 million honorable powers. For the first time, Zhao Ling Tian was in a mess, and his rhythm was messed up as he fought with Fong Ling and Fong Ling. If this continued, the 100 years of sword intent that he had accumulated might not be able to withstand this fellow. What kind of joke is this? My condensed sword intent should be able to withstand the attacks of an entire region's Saint Kings. Could this fellow's continuous attacks be able to withstand the attacks of an entire region of the 36 regions? Bang! Lin Chen's fists were like a raging storm, and his fists smashed through the surging sword intent. It was the third-level sword intent of the Gate of Destiny. Golden Body of the God of War. Lin Chen activated the special characteristic of the God of War set, and his entire body was covered with a layer of faint golden light. It was as if he had been coated with a layer of divine light, and it was as if he had been coated with a layer of divine light, and it blocked a large amount of explosive sword intent. The more he fought, the more ferocious he became. His fists were as if they were splitting open the sky, and his legs were fiercely attacking. In fact, when the battle was at its peak, a sharp sword intent shot towards him like a poisonous snake. Lin Chen's 10 fingers suddenly pierced through the sword intent that was like a long snake that could split open the heavens and the earth. Then, he pulled his hands horizontally and tore apart the sword intent. The Hao Ran Palace's elders' eyes almost popped out of their sockets, tearing the sword intent with his bare hands. The peerless sword intent of the sword intent realm. Every sword intent was equivalent to the sword technique of the first Sword King. How could this young man be as strong as a monster? Bang! 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 The sword intent exploded, turning into fragments of light that fell onto the young man's body that was swirling with golden light. It was as if the God of War had split open the heavens. At this moment, all the Sword Realm experts were stunned. This was the first time in the history of the Sword Realm that such a scene had happened. He was enveloped in divine light, and the golden divine light was boundless. He stood tall and stood on the Sword Realm's Dragon of Destiny, looking down on all living beings in the Sword Realm. His fists were like the power to shatter the laws of heaven and earth, and each of his fists brazenly crushed the surging sword intent without fear. Bang! Boom! Lin Chen destroyed the third-level sword intent wave, and the Gate of Destiny began to show signs of shattering. The last sword intent was the strongest sword intent that the Sky High Sword King had condensed for many centuries. The Sky High Sword King, who was unable to personally fight Lin Chen, let out a hysterical roar. Sky High Sword Intent, go! Kill this kid! This sword was the Sky-High Sword King's final trump card to dominate the Gate of Destiny, and it had been brewing for many centuries. He even had the confidence to kill more than 10 Sage Kings with this sword. Boom, boom, boom. The largest sword intent was like a heavenly dragon suppressing the world. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws at Lin Chen, revealing a peerless sharpness as it swooped down. Lin Chen was brazen and fearless. His body was enveloped in endless divine light and golden brilliance, and he rushed toward the Gate of Destiny on the Dragon of Destiny beneath his feet. Wisps of destiny leaked out from the Gate of Destiny, and Lin Chen sensed that this strange power was like the wills of countless dead sword cultivators before they died. It surged into his vital spirit, and it instantly ignited Lin Chen's anger and emotions. Almost instinctively, Lin Chen carried the power of destiny and roared toward the sky, using the power of destiny to spread throughout the entire sword realm. Shout, sword sages! Roar, sword cultivators! Entrust the will of the sword Tao to the new era. Divine light shone, and burning hot blood burst forth from Lin Chen's body. It was as hot as blood and fire, and his power skyrocketed. Putting everything on the line, Lin Chen punched out fiercely. Everywhere the fist wind passed, it instantly shattered the endless space. With Lin Chen's fist as the center, a golden vortex formed and collided head-on with the skyscraping sword monarch's strongest sword intent. The gigantic heavenly dragon-shaped sword intent suddenly trembled. The fist wind swept through heaven, earth, sun, and moon. Boom! Bam! In the eastern sky of the sword domain, sword lights exploded and filled the sky like fragments of light, scattering everywhere and illuminating the horizon. The young man shrouded in golden brilliance stepped on endless golden light as he stood in the middle of the shattered sword intent vortex. When he retracted his fist, he looked like a god of war splitting open the sky, and he grinned. This scene is really not a normal kind of delightful. In front of him, the Gate of Destiny that stood high above heaven and earth was covered in cracks. With a crack, it completely shattered. The Gate of Destiny had shattered. The Sword Realm's destiny had been completely liberated. Chapter 1731. Many experts from the sword domain stared at this scene in shock. They stared at Lin Chen in astonishment. They were shocked and in disbelief. It was as if a beam of light had suddenly shone into the endless darkness. Moreover, this beam of light came with ease and left with pride. When it shone in, it had already expelled all the darkness. The supreme experts of the various rank 9 sects seemed to have understood something and felt something in their hearts. The door of providence that had collapsed gradually disintegrated. There was no sound, but one could feel the space trembling violently and rippling continuously. Then, like a meteor shower, the scattered power of providence was thrown further and further away. All the swordsmen in the sacred boundary who had comprehended the sword will had a new understanding and perception at this moment. In the endless darkness of the sword Tao, they saw a candle flame. The candle flame grew bigger and bigger until it finally became a bright lamp that illuminated the distance. Although the end of the light was still very far away, the sword Tao was no longer dark. No! Zhao Lingtian roared like a madman. He held his sword with both hands. His blood, qi, and primordial spirit suddenly became a few times more violent. His vitality dimmed and disappeared, but his strength skyrocketed. He slashed with his sword, and a ray of light shot across the sky. Although the area was not big, it instantly pushed Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun back. This sword was not inferior to the power of the strongest sword will just now. Lang Fanyun spat out blood. His flesh felt as if it had been pierced and minced by the sword will. He was in so much pain that even his saber will was almost shattered. He was on the verge of death. That sword was the sword that Zhao Lingtian had used up all his vitality. Zhao Lingtian did not care too much. He turned around and charged toward Lin Chen. "Lin Chen, I'm going to kill you!" Zhao Lingtian was furious. His hair was messy, and his expression was hysterical. He charged with his sword and stabbed out. His sword will pierce through the void. Clang! The sound of a sword whistled through the sky, and the sword light came to intercept him. Clang! Fang Ling blocked in front of Zhao Lingtian with his sword. His expression was fierce, and when he held his sword against Zhao Lingtian, his gaze was especially sharp. Zhao Lingtian's pupils shrank. This guy's sword intent, could it be? Blood trickled down from the corner of Lang Fanyun's mouth. For the first time, he grinned and said, "I'll let you walk in front of me this time. I'll catch up very soon, old friend." Rumble! A peerless sword intent soared into the sky from Fang Ling's body. Clang! 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 At this moment, the numerous swords of the Eternal Sword sect were all bowing towards the two people in the air. Myriad sacred swords worshipped, comprehending the sword intent with the heart. Godlike sword intent. At this moment, Fang Ling's sword intent was at the same level as Zhao Lingtian. They were both at the sword intent divinity realm. He actually entered. His talent is still so monstrous. The moment the light from Providence was released, you stepped into that realm without any hesitation. Fang Ling, oh Fang Ling, you are still alive. You are my greatest obstacle. Zhao Lingtian's mind was shaken. However, he still pretended to be calm on the surface. He growled savagely, "Fang Ling, what right do you have to fight me? In terms of sword essence, I have been in it for longer than you. In terms of cultivation, I have accumulated more than you. You can't beat me." Zhao Lingtian waved his sword angrily. 1,000 slashes in an instant. Fang Ling was calm. He was like a burning flame that was burning brighter and brighter. "You are wrong, Zhao Lingtian. This is not about whether I can beat you or not." Clang! Fang Ling drew his sword and slashed horizontally. He blocked all of Zhao Lingtian's attacks as he spoke calmly. "It is about whether I must stand in front of you at this moment. For my lord, I have already disregarded life and death. This sword is beyond life and death. The number 1 sword king of the sacred boundary. Take this." Fang Ling held his sword and slashed violently at Zhao Lingtian's head. The terrifying sword intent sliced open the sky. Clang! 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 The sword intent sliced open the heavens and the earth. When it sliced open the space, just the remnants of the sword intent created a deep abyss. Zhao Lingtian held his sword with both hands. When he blocked the sword above his head, his body emitted a creaking sound. His sacred bones were being squeezed? This guy's sword intent will only advance and not retreat. He is using all of his sacred power. He wants to risk his life with me. Is he crazy? I have finally achieved the sword intent divine connection and he wants to risk his life with me? Zhao Lingtian was completely shocked. He was shocked by Fang Ling's boldness. His sword technique should only advance and not retreat. This should be the highlight of his life. Retreating was the best choice for him. But he chose to fight him. There was a difference in their cultivation levels. Fang Ling still chose to attack fiercely. Every strike was a gamble with his life. He did not care about winning or losing. He only wanted to use his life to block Zhao Lingtian's attack. Lunatic, a complete lunatic. This Lin Chen was a lunatic. Everyone around him was a lunatic too. Clang! 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 Zhao Lingtian was once again entangled in the battle. Fang Ling's power continued to rise. The realm of his sword intent continued to deepen. If it was not for the restriction of fate, he would have already reached the sword intent divine connection realm. Not to mention, after being suppressed in the sacred prison for countless eras, he could now freely control his sword intent. His way of the sword was fully unleashed, giving Zhao Lingtian a ferocious feeling that he could only die. Even Zhao Lingtian could not take him down. On the other side, Lin Chen was standing on the dragon of fate. The power of fate was slowly dissipating. Lin Chen was slightly surprised. According to his estimation, the previous punch should not have been enough to instantly crush the sky-reaching Sword King's strongest sword intent. When Lin Chen activated the power of his primordial spirit to look around, he found a group of people in the direction where the fluctuations of fate were dissipating. A group of incomplete figures, like the afterglow of the setting sun. They carried swords on their backs, carried swords, held swords, and listened to swords. But at the same time, their gazes were quietly fixed on Lin Chen. Their expressions were as if they had let go of something important. In the end, they gradually disappeared into nothingness. Lin Chen was not the only one who witnessed this scene. The experts who came to watch the battle were all shocked. Lin Chen smiled knowingly. So it's them. Those experts of the way of the sword who died, their fates were imprisoned here together. That's why when the gate of fate was broken midway, their sword intent was released together with the strange domain. That punch was not only my power, but also their sword intent. After understanding the reason, Lin Chen took advantage of the opportunity when the power of fate was floating out before it completely dissipated to release his primordial spirit and attach it to the power of fate. He shouted coldly, "Sword cultivators of the world, listen to my command. I am Lin Chen. I follow the will of the sages of the way of the sword and inform all sword cultivators. From now on, the way of the sword will no longer be restricted by fate. Everyone on the way of the sword will be like a dragon. Rumble." This voice transmission, along with the power of fate, began to gradually spread throughout the sacred boundary. Presumably, soon, all sword cultivators who had comprehended sword intent would receive Lin Chen's words. And more power of fate began to spread throughout the sacred boundary with the sword domain as the center. In the end, it all turned into clouds and merged into the 36 domains. Chapter 1732. While Elder Black Moon was fending off a Sage King and a Sword King, there was a hint of hope and surprise in her eyes. She looked at the young man standing on the gate of Providence in the sky and muttered to herself, "I didn't expect him to really do it. Ruoyun, this lass, has really chosen an impressive man. With the current situation, the holy world will probably undergo a drastic change because of him." However, Elder Blackman's gaze became even sharper. The more aggressive he was, the more serious the consequences would be. Lin Chen had shattered the gate of Providence and released the Providence of the Sword Realm. She knew very well what kind of chain reaction it would cause. Back then, Zhao Lingtian had the help of many hidden forces to condense and block Providence. They had a very close relationship with the top 10 on the Saint Talent ranking. This battle would definitely attract the attention of the top 10 monsters on the Saint Talent ranking. Lin Chen would become the target of public criticism. This little guy is powerful, but he's also good at stirring up trouble. The Divine Flame Palace will have to fight several tough battles soon. It's really annoying. I'm already a bunch of old bones, but he still wants to use me as a fighting force. Elder Black Moon was helpless. Seeing that this little guy could help her improve her mental cultivation technique and had signs of a breakthrough, she would help him with all her strength. On the other side, Zhao Lingtian witnessed this scene with his own eyes, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His years of accumulation had gone down the drain, and he even wanted to rush up and kill Lin Chen with his sword. However, Fong Ling stood in front of him stubbornly and even fought with him at the cost of getting injured. Rumble! Lin Chen's 4 doppelgangers rushed towards Zhao Lingtian aggressively. They surrounded Zhao Lingtian and coordinated with Fong Ling to attack Zhao Lingtian. When the Providence disappeared, there was actually a golden attribute treasure chest left in the void. Lin Chen reached out and grabbed it. Host has opened the Divine Material treasure chest and obtained a special Divine Material fragment, 3/3. Host has completed collection. Host can fuse a special Divine Material at any time. A Divine Material? Lin Chen was wild with joy. The significance of this item was no small matter. Lin Chen had to find a time to take it out. Any divine-grade material was extremely valuable to Lin Chen. Lin Chen suddenly turned around. His eyes flickered with a ruthless light, as if he was not afraid of wearing shoes. He said sternly, "All that's left is the culprit behind the sealing of fate. Kill him!" Boom! Lin Chen stepped into the void and charged towards Zhao Lingtian. On the other side, among the sword domain experts, Hall Master Hao Ran sensed the new path of the sword Dao that was being guided by fate. He said in a daze, Is this real? I can actually sense the path of the sword intent again. As long as I go into seclusion, the sword intent can rise again. The pavilion master of the Jade Sword Pavilion said intoxicatedly. My intrinsic sword intent actually saw the candle flame of the sword Dao. It's all thanks to this kid. Divine Sword Valley's old man Divine Sword did not say anything. He simply placed his hand on the sword hilt. Whoosh! The next moment, Elder Divine's sword disappeared. In the increasingly intense battle circle, boom! Lin Chen's fist split open the sky and landed on Zhao Lingtian's back. A crack appeared on his defensive sacred artifact, the violet gold flowing blade armor. Rip! Lin Chen's leg was like a saber that crushed everything. Zhao Lingtian was forced to use his sword to forcefully block Lin Chen's attack. A gigantic heaven-splitting sword descended from the heavens, bringing with it an unstoppable God-span sword intent. Not only that, but in front of Zhao Lingtian, an auspicious light shot into the sky. The space was charred black, and it was like a rolling fire dragon that shot out. In an instant, 5 sky-burning arrows appeared. Immediately after, the sword intent that was like a thunder dragon suddenly exploded, and an ancient sword that was as ancient as a spring stabbed towards Zhao Lingtian. 5 Shadows Divine Blade Sword. Zhao Lingtian circulated his sacred power, and his aura exploded. He raised his sword and slashed. He actually used a completely new sword technique. His sword slashed out 5 sword marks that resembled divine shadows. His sword intent was like a swimming dragon that crushed everyone's attacks. As he retreated, Zhao Lingtian's expression turned ugly as he shouted coldly, "Damn it! You old bastard, you want to join in as well?" Elder Divine's sword floated in the air. He looked like an immortal as he held the ancient sword in his hand. The sword's body was faint blue, and it reflected the resolute and unwavering gaze in his old eyes. This person is the last person that my divine sword region's ancestors entrusted their will to. My body should also respond to his call. I've long wanted to challenge you. Zhao Lingtian, I don't plan on going back alive today. Clang! Elder Divine's sword slashed diagonally with his sword, creating a path of blood. His Deshang stage sword intent soared into the sky. Lunatics! All of you are lunatics! Zhao Lingtian cursed as he was besieged. Lin Chen didn't care. It was their business if they wanted to help him. He only had one problem now, and that was to beat the first Sword King. The wind from his fists was as sharp as a knife, shattering the space. Lin Chen's fists were like fierce dragons as he punched Zhao Lingtian. Even Lang Fanyun endured his injuries and joined the besieging party. The Sky-High Sword King was being besieged by Lin Chen, his 4 clones, Lang Fanyun, Elder Divine Sword, and Fong Ling, but he was still undefeated. He deserved to be called the strongest Sword King. Very good, Lin Chen. This time, this seat counts as your win. But don't think about ending well. Things won't be so simple. Zhao Lingtian activated his spatial saint artifact, the phaseless transference cloak, and entered the void. With a series of flashes, Lin Chen seemed to have predicted this and suddenly sent a telepathic message. Buzz! 2 huge space blades appeared out of thin air and slashed down like a pair of sharp scissors. Splat! A tearing sound filled the sky, and Zhao Lingtian's spatial teleportation was interrupted. What? Spatial divine technique. Zhao Lingtian's expression changed slightly. Whoosh! Lin Chen turned into a beam of golden light and flew toward him. His clones stepped on clouds and flew toward him. When they appeared, they each threw a punch. Bang! 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 Zhao Lingtian was caught off guard. His last bit of defense was broken, and he vomited blood on the spot. Chrono Transcendence talent. A host used Chrono Transcendence 5 times. 5 million top-level talent points have been consumed. Whoosh! A beam of green light flashed past, and Lin Chen, his 4 clones, and the sky-high Sword King all disappeared. When Zhao Lingtian reappeared, he was already in a grayish-white space. There were no boundaries around him, and it was as if there was no end to it. What the hell is this place? A spatial sacred artifact? No, it's not that simple. Zhao Lingtian was shocked. Could this be the God creation space? Lin Chen and his clones appeared together. He laughed mockingly. You can also think of it as the God creation space. The first Sword King is really difficult to deal with. I need my clones to use Chrono Transcendence 5 times to have a high chance of pulling you in. Lin Chen's smile gradually turned cold. However, the story of the first Sword King will end today. System: absolute life and death. The enemy has hostility and killing intent toward the host. Host has successfully chosen a target. 4 million top-level talent points have been consumed. The orange flame of life instantly burned and covered Lin Chen's entire body. Boom! 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 The golden light of the god of war shot up into the sky and lit up the entire Chrono Transcendence dimension. Endless divine light surrounded Lin Chen and rose rapidly. Zhao Lingtian was shocked. Lin Chen's pure strength was still rising. Once absolute life and death was activated, there was no way out. Lin Chen and Zhao Lingtian's fight to the death would not end until the death. Chapter 1733. Feeling Lin Chen's change, Zhao Lingtian's pupils constricted. Are you crazy? You're burning your own life force. Are you going to fight me to the death? I have no enmity with you. It's not enough that I've released my providence. Do you want to take my life? Lin Chen laughed mockingly. Who says I'm going to die? I'm indeed burning my life force to fight. But if you want me to die with you, you're thinking too much. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The intense energy vibration became scorching hot, making people's hearts palpitate. Lin Chen's 4 clones, on the bowstring, on the tip of the sword, and on the edge of the saber, had 5 lantern-shaped, 9-colored light spheres spinning around. They were magnificent and magnificent. Zhao Lingtian's heart trembled. This kid actually had such a terrifying weapon. Try this, first Sword King. Lin Chen snapped his fingers. His clones either drew their blades, slashed with their swords, or shot with their bows. A total of 29 colored balls of energy shot toward him. With this attack, all 4 clones had used up all their saint power. Zhao Lingtian immediately held his sword. His illuminating God Realm sword intent wrapped around the blade. Once again, he used the 5 Shadow Divine Blade Sword. This time, he used his strongest sword intent. His primordial spirit and saint power were instantly consumed. 5 Blade Absolute, Divine Blade Hidden, Star Explosion, 5 sword lights that were as graceful as swimming dragons and 29 colored star cores exploded with a loud boom. Boom. Bang. 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 The terrifying energy swept through the entire dimension. Lin Chen did not think that this wave of attacks would be able to kill the strongest Sword King. Rip. The wild flow of energy tore apart, and within the apocalyptic mushroom cloud of energy, a figure rushed in. It was Lin Chen. He raised his hand into a fist and aimed it at Zhao Lingtian's head. This guy can actually ignore the energy shockwaves and move forward? Zhao Lingtian was shocked. He had just used his sword intent. He had no choice but to use his saint power to slash with his sword. His fists and feet attacked, and his sword slashed rapidly. Lin Chen fought head-on with the golden-armored kicks and fists. He was not afraid of his sword at all. Clang! 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 The two of them fought in close combat. More and more wounds appeared on Zhao Lingtian's body. From time to time, there were small explosions of pure energy in his body. His skin and flesh were torn open, and his saint body was bleeding profusely. His blood was boiling. What a strange attack! Not only can my injuries not be healed, there is even a strange power that has seeped into my body, ignoring my sword-intent protection and actually exploding from within. Zhao Lingtian was shocked once again. Lin Chen's methods had exceeded his understanding again and again. 100 Images Godly Steps. With a sprinkle of his essence blood and a wave of his cloak, Zhao Lingtian attempted to flee into the void. He traveled tens of thousands of miles, frantically activating his spatial saint artifact to quickly leave Lin Chen's attack range. However, he noticed to his astonishment that no matter how he fled, he was unable to escape this space, nor was he able to tear open the boundaries of this space. It was as if there was no way out in this eternal space-time. Any means of escape would be useless. It's all thanks to your escape that I gained some time to recover. As Lin Chen's laughter reverberated through the air, his 4 avatars appeared in perfect condition once more. This time, Zhao Lingtian was completely dumbfounded. What kind of joke is this? Is this AF * King illusion? I've really seen a ghost today. Just now, he had clearly sensed that all of Lin Chen's avatars had exhausted their saint powers. How could they have recovered in such a short time? Bullsh * T. Even if this was the best divine pill, there would still be a refining process. Double star explosion. This is for you. Whoosh. Rumble. The avatars once again used Annihilation Star Explosion to attack Zhao Lingtian in all directions. Host has activated the Annihilation Explosion and Annihilation Split Creation talents 4 times. Zhao Lingtian quickly waved his sword, and the sword intent split the remaining energy waves. He covered his wounds and crazily swallowed pills. The broken saint artifact continued to heal his wounds. He did not even care about how strong the energy of the divine pill was and how many damaged meridians. He only had one thought now, and that was to kill Lin Chen. Apart from killing him, there was no other way to escape from this space. The air was torn apart. Lin Chen once again activated his pure strength. The golden body of the god of war protected his entire body. He did not care about how many times Zhao Lingtian had activated the Annihilation Explosion and Annihilation Split Creation talent. He continued to attack Zhao Lingtian at close range. He did not give him a chance at all. Consumed 1,600,000 divine rune energy, replenishing all of the saint powers consumed by the avatars. Seeing that Lin Chen's avatars had begun to recover their saint powers at lightning speed, Zhao Lingtian finally revealed a look of fear. This was the closest he had been to death ever since he became the first Sword King. Lin Chen, how about we have a good talk? I still have the coordinates of many secret space treasures. I can give them all to you. I can help you surpass all the holy kings in no time. Yes, I can also help you gather providence, and let you become the person who controls the providence of a territory. Don't kill me, we can talk about it. I can also help you enter the top 5 of the Saint Talent roll. Lin Chen, join forces with me. Lin Chen suddenly swung his fist down. Divine light surged as he shouted angrily, join forces my ass. Cutting off one's providence is undoubtedly cutting off one's path to wealth and killing one's parent. You have monopolized providence for so many years and even framed Fong Ling. If I don't kill you, I will be letting myself down. Bang! He knocked Zhao Lingtian back with a punch. His pupils constricted, and a piercing cold light shot straight to the top of his head. At this moment, Lin Chen's 4 avatars were holding the Annihilation Star Explosion, which overflowed with destructive energy. Wait, Lin Chen. Crawl. He drew his bow, and the arrow shot out like a dragon. He raised his sword and slashed forward. The annihilation star explosion of the avatars once again swarmed forward. Rumble. This time, Zhao Lingtian's sword intent and remaining defensive sacred artifacts were not enough to block Lin Chen's third wave of attacks. Although Lin Chen's sacred power was only equivalent to that of an ordinary sacred king, his instant light split shadow and extreme god possession increased the power of the annihilation star explosion by several levels. After 3 consecutive attacks, the entire space-time dimension trembled. A moment later, the host has killed the enemy target. The absolute life and death state has been removed. Elemental light balls and treasures filled the sky and scattered in the space-time dimension. Zhao Lingtian's body floated in the air. Zhao Lingtian was unable to completely withstand the third wave of annihilation star explosion. In terms of pure power, the third star explosion was actually not enough to completely kill Zhao Lingtian. However, the chain reaction caused by Lin Chen's annihilation explosion and annihilation was too strong. It began to destroy his sacred body from the inside. Even his primordial spirit was destroyed. He did not even have a chance to counterattack. The sword intent is really strong. Even this can't destroy you. The sword intent can be used to protect the body and also become the strongest attack. I'm so envious. When can I get one too? Lin Chen glanced at Zhao Lingtian's body. Lin Chen was rather envious. The #1 Sword King, who was known as the strongest in the Holy World, had come to an end. A dazzling attribute treasure chest floated in front of Lin Chen. Chapter 1734. The path of intent required a long time of accumulation, and it was not a realm that Lin Chen could learn. At least, the current version of the system did not have the ability to comprehend intent. Lin Chen had the system, but it did not mean that he was omniscient. Every expert's methods accumulated over countless years were very unique and powerful. They had their own path and path. Even if Lin Chen had the system, he could not complete the path that the other party had accumulated over hundreds or thousands of eras. Host has received 25,900 top-tier Heavens Path points, 250, 9 billion Sacred Grade Essence points, 16 billion Sacred Grade Set Essence points, 92 million Intermediate Strengthening points, 3 billion Sacred Grade Spiritual Power, 6 billion Sacred Grade Health points, 40,000 Metal-type Energy, 190,000 Sacred Grade Rune Energy, 520,000 Sacred Grade Technique Essence points. When the doppelganger took away the attribute light balls, Lin Chen's attribute points soared. Especially the set essence points, they skyrocketed. The foundation of the strongest Sword King, especially when he had so many 9th-grade saint artifacts, had been destroyed by Lin Chen. The amount of set essences he had dropped could be said to be enormous. Not only did it deplete Lin Chen's Aries set this time, but it also increased the Aries set's charge to 95%. Kaboom! After Zhao Lingtian died, only a dazzling attribute treasure chest with orange light lingering around it was left behind. The surface of the treasure chest was covered with a faint divine light, as if it was divine. Lin Chen was filled with curiosity as he reached out to grab it. Host has received a supreme grade God grade material treasure chest. Upon opening it, 1 9-fold divine star. Buzz. When the attribute treasure chest opened, a green agate as bright as the stars floated in the space-time dimension. Dazzling divine light shone from the agate jade. The magical thing was that the agate jade contained 9 different colors, and each of the divine light contained a different energy. 9-fold divine star. It's actually a divine grade ore. How magical. Just holding it gives me the illusion that the stars, sun, and moon are in my hands. Lin Chen's heart throbbed. This was a divine material that could be used to refine divine artifacts. but most importantly, it was the raw material for the sixth piece of the Ares set. Lin Chen did not care about cleaning up the attribute points and spoils of war. He directly put them into the fate plant pouch and immediately left the hyperspace dimension. Back in the outside world, Lang Fanyan saw Lin Chen and immediately asked, "Master, are you all right?" Lin Chen smiled and nodded. "They're all minor injuries. It's no big deal." Fong Ling hesitated for a moment before saying, "My lord, that guy," Lin Chen said. "He's dead. I killed him in the space I created." If he died in the outside world, the death of Qingtian Sword King would cause a new phenomenon. However, the super spacetime isolated the aura of the outside world, so outsiders could not sense it. Unless it was a saint talent like the Saint Talent List, the Saint Talent List had an absolute connection and maintained the destiny of the human race. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of many sword domain experts were extremely interesting. Dead? The number 1 Sword King actually really perished? That was the master of the Sword's Gate that was said to be indestructible. There was once a divination master who predicted that if the sword god did not appear, even if the sword domain gathered all their forces, they might not be able to take down the eternal Sword's Gate. At this time, Lin Ping flew over and said unhappily, "Those guys ran pretty fast. I can't believe I didn't manage to kill them. How annoying." Lin Chen laughed and said, "We don't have time to chase after them. We still have things to do." Lin Chen did not blame Lin Ping'an. If a Saint King cultivator insisted on running away, it would be very difficult to kill him in a one-on-one battle. The reason why Lin Chen was able to kill Saint Kings so many times before was because he had the advantage of numbers and the ultimate heaven-defying beast. In addition, he also had the advantage of speed. Otherwise, how could Saint King realm experts be killed so easily? Lin Ping smiled and said, "Then let's not bother about them. In order to appease my anger, I've found some good stuff." As he finished, Lin Ping threw a few supreme-grade spatial rings and 5 high-grade fate plant pouches to Lin Chen. Lin Chen caught them and realized that they were the assets of the Eternal Sword's Gate. He gave him a thumbs up and called him an expert. Professional, too professional. I'm liking this girl more and more. As expected of someone who follows me, so nimble. Lin Chen did not say anything and released the Saint Dragon. The humanoid Saint Dragon pushed his palm forward and activated the Yin-Yang Divine Dragon Bloodline ability. The vast and profound Yin-Yang Dragon Qi in his palms was filled with an immortal aura. It enveloped Lang Fanyun and turned into 2 Yin-Yang dragons. His injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Immortal creation. Lin Chen's Yin-Yang Divine Dragon Bloodline ability. Although his Saint Dragon had yet to reach the Dragon King's level, with the enhancement of plus 17, Lin Chen's recovery speed was not any slower than the Dragon King's when he used this move. At this time, an old and hoarse voice sounded. "The student has really surpassed the master." Old Man Divine Sword was dressed in linen clothes and carried an ancient sword on his back. Lin Chen cupped his hands and smiled casually. "Hello, Senior. Thank you for your help in dealing with the Sky-High Sword King." "You're welcome." Old Man Divine Sword nodded and squeezed out an unprecedented smile. "Even if you don't need my help, it won't be a problem for you to kill him. Lin Chen is really the light of the human race in the sacred boundary. All of us sword cultivators owe our young friend Lin Chen a huge favor. Lin Chen opened the path of the sword for us. If you need anything in the future, just let us know. We won't hesitate to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames." At this time, the experts from the various grade 9 forces of the sword domain came forward to congratulate and thank him. Lin Chen smiled mockingly. "You're willing to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames. All right, we're going to turn the sword domain upside down and release their fate plan. Let's go together." As soon as he said that, Everyone from the sword domain opened their mouths, and their eyelids twitched. Lin Chen smiled coquettishly. Swords and sabers belong to the same family. Since we're a family, we should be neat and tidy. Damn it, was this guy even human? He had just released the sword domain's fate plant, and now he was going to the sword domain? Was he serious? Taking down 2 domains in one day? Wasn't it good to be human? Lang Fanyun was happy to hear that, but he wanted to say something. My lord, isn't this too hasty? Should we retreat first? Lin Chen immediately put on a stern face and pretended to be serious. What are you talking about? What if they react and set up another trap, mobilizing experts to guard against us? If we fight then, we'll be a real hothead. I won't do such a stupid thing. Mr. Liu is right. Since we're going to do it, we should do it to the end. A man who dares to overturn everything is a true warrior. As soon as they heard that Lin Chen was going to take down the sword domain, the experts from the sword domain looked embarrassed. They were not afraid of the sword domain's experts, but if they were to take the risk and go to their headquarters, it would not be something that could be resolved with just a word of fight. The big shots of the sword domain all found excuses. Lin Chen, I suddenly remembered that there's something in the pavilion. Yes, our sword pavilion is on fire. Let's go back and put out the fire first. Aya, my disciple is suddenly injured. I have to hurry back and treat him. Lin Chen, come to my Hao Ran palace for tea when you're free. Aya, I just remembered that my wife is about to give birth. Lin Chen, I won't keep you company for now. My wife is giving birth too. Lin Chen, your wives are the same? Lin Pingyan, look at your cowardly faces. Chapter 1735. His clones swept across and collected the attribute light balls dropped by the Eternal Sword sect. Kaboom! A dragon aura soared into the sky as dragon roars sounded. Tens of thousands of dragon talismans released a divine light that covered the sky and shrouded everyone. Boom! 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 The wind and clouds changed. Endless spirit chi formed a vortex and gathered in the sky above the Eternal Sword sect, transforming into shadows of ancient divine dragons that roared at the sky. Elder Xian Yu said in surprise, "This is the birth of the Dragon King." This is... Lin Chen was stunned at first before he was overjoyed. My divine dragon has finally broken through. Lin Chen looked at the divine dragon that was healing Lang Fanyun. The dragon aura within the dragon veins contained the mountains, rivers, sun, and moon. Every dragon vein glowed with a brand new vitality and power. It was as if a single breath of dragon aura could sweep away the sun, moon, and stars. Dragon King. A genuine Dragon King. If the divine dragon could only rely on a few exceptional abilities to contend with a Saint King before, then now, it could even fight a Saint King head-on. It could even gain the absolute upper hand. Its battle strength had risen by more than a level. Even the speed of healing Lang Fanyun's injuries had more than doubled. Looks like the saint-level blood chi attribute obtained from Zhao Lingtian has allowed my divine dragon to break through its final limit. Lin Chen smiled like a rose. The divine dragon's breakthrough not only brought about a transformation in its battle strength, but also a great improvement in its ability to protect itself. It was no longer the same as before. However, Lin Chen couldn't be bothered with the remnants of the Eternal Sword sect. He looked up at the sky and transmitted his voice. Ling are you ready? Xiao Ling stepped out of the void and appeared in a green dress. She was beautiful and elegant like ripples in autumn. She bowed slightly. Master, the space tunnel is ready. We can take off at any time. Without another word, Lin Chen picked up Lang Fanyun and Fong Ling. He laughed and said, "Let's go, King Saber Domain. Good things come in pairs. Since we're going to release our providence, the 2 domains should be neat." Elder Xian Yu shook her head helplessly and followed him. Lin Ping and waved her little fists excitedly and said, "I wonder what treasures will be waiting for me in the next territory." I'm so high, I feel like my life has reached the peak. Elder Xian Yu was speechless when she saw Lin Chen turn a painful disaster into such a state. Why was it that every single person who was related to Lin Chen would become so abnormal? Whoosh! The spatial tunnel closed, and everyone disappeared. On the other side, the various domains of the sacred boundary. Sword cultivators of the world, heed my command. I am Lin Chen, and I am following the will of the sages of the way of the sword to inform all sword cultivators. From today onwards, the Tao of sword cultivators will no longer be restricted by karmic luck. Everyone on the Tao of the sword will be like a dragon. His grand and deep voice was soul-stirring, filled with lofty sentiments, and spread through the sword intent perception of every swordsman. Their sword intents became even purer, and a ray of light appeared on the dark path. Lin Chen? Could it be that Lin Chen who challenged the Genesis era? Has he released his karmic luck? My sword intent has met the end. Rumor has it that the karmic luck of the sword has been sealed, and it has something to do with the sky-bearing sword king, Zhao Lingtian. Could it be that there is someone here who dares to challenge the #1 sword king of the sword domain? If there is no torch flame, he will be the only light. Desheng stage sword intent. Ha 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 ha, my Tao of the sword. Lin Chen, what a good guy. I'm willing to call him the most arrogant. Ha 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 ha. It seems that all the sword cultivators in the sacred boundary owe Lin Chen a favor. Different voices rose and fell in various parts of the sacred boundary. This day would definitely be a milestone in the history of the way of the sword. In the heavens beyond heaven, the round wheel was like a millstone that slowly rotated. There were 5 figures sitting cross-legged here. The 5 of them were surrounded by an aura of transcendence and transcendence. They stood above all other living beings. Some of them were surrounded by destruction. The illusions of ancient beasts such as the Azure Dragon, True Dragon, and Koan Pung were destroyed. It was as if there were supreme beasts lurking in their bodies. Their chi was like a river, and their blood was like an ocean. The white-robed man in the center suddenly opened his eyes. His aura was terrifying, and his physique contained the mountains, rivers, sun, and moon. 5 colored clouds rose above his head, and his saint force was like a thunderstorm. His gaze tore through the void as he stared into the distance. The person beside him had a majestic physique. He was covered in 9 layers of scorching suns, and blood flames surged. Waves of yang flames swept through the universe, and a sea of fire burned through the 9 heavens and 10 lands, swallowing the world. The white-robed youth opposite him was covered in a saber, and its sharpness lingered. When he opened his eyes, he looked over and slashed open the great Tao of the void, triggering the powerful saber intent to shine with a dragon's roar. There was even an illusion of 3 heads and 6 arms, 6 eyes and 4 ears. It was extremely demonic, and its pair of eyes were as deep as the galaxy. When it stared into the distant void, the space suddenly collapsed. The last person was like a falling sunflower. He had a demonic temperament, and he was extraordinarily handsome. His peach blossom eyes were as beautiful as a woman's, but there was a cold, murderous aura between his brows. When he glanced over, a falling star disintegrated. These 5 people were all legendary figures in the top 10 of the Saint Talent list. 8th on the Saint Talent list, top saber of the world, Nangong Xianyuan. 7th on the Saint Talent list, Evil Lord Sunflower, Jin Wuxia. 6th on the Saint Talent list, Evil Moon, Heavy Ear. 5th on the Saint Talent list, 9 Sun Saint King, Jin Tai. 4th on the Saint Talent list, Tyrant Lord Yang Qianjin. The 5 legendary figures on the Saint Talent list woke up from their seclusion at the same time. When they looked into the distant void, they were shocked, confused, and surprised. The sacred boundary was ever-changing, and they had never frowned. The killing of ordinary experts could no longer affect their situation. Their cultivation had basically broken away from the sacred boundary, and they were pursuing a higher realm in the Saint King realm. Providence was one of their fastest shortcuts. Providence was connected to the heavenly axiom of the universe. Those who accumulated enough providence could turn misfortune into luck, and turn adversity into prosperity. When they wanted to explore more opportunities, they needed to accumulate more providence in their bodies. And here, it involved an important secret. That was, the best supreme-grade providence spiritual plant. Every top 10 on the Saint Talent list needed a supreme-grade providence spiritual plant. Ordinary providence spiritual plants could only absorb providence on their own to produce treasures and resources with corresponding characteristics. Supreme-grade providence spiritual plants could partially control providence. Top supreme-grade providence spiritual plants could even accumulate providence. This was a very terrifying thing. There was a world of difference between this and upper-grade and mid-grade providence spiritual plants that could only absorb providence. This was also the reason why supreme-grade providence spiritual plants were so rare. Those who were protected by providence far surpassed ordinary geniuses. And beside Lin Chen, there was also someone who could control providence, the Scarlet Fairy. Lin Chen didn't really know about her existence. However, that was a story for another time. At this moment, what made this group of Saint Talents, who wouldn't lose their composure even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, was that the providence of the Sword Realm had actually collapsed. It was as if the person who served you every day was a devastatingly beautiful woman, but suddenly changed to Ruhua one day. Then, even Ruhua was gone in the end. In this sacred boundary, there was still a human who dared to have designs on the top 10 on the Saint Talent list? The providence of the Sword Realm has collapsed. What is Zhao Lingtian doing? No, his sword intent imprint has already shattered. He can't be more dead. What a good-for-nothing. To think that our aristocratic families specially gathered providence for him. He can't even guard a gate of providence. What kind of trash is this? The three Saint Talents looked at each other, and the contempt in their words was extremely cold and arrogant. Suddenly, a voice accompanied by the shattered power of providence slowly spread to the sky beyond heaven. All sword cultivators in the world listen to my orders. I am Lin Chen, and I follow the will of the sages of the Sword Tao to inform all sword cultivators. From now on, the path of sword cultivators will no longer be restricted by providence. Everyone in the Sword Tao will be like a dragon. These words immediately attracted the attention of the 5 Saint Talents. They suddenly stood up and stepped into the void. Their eyes were filled with killing intent, and they couldn't wait to skin him alive. Yang Qianjin, the leader of the 5th on the Saint Talent list, almost squeezed the words out of his teeth. Lin Chen? At this moment, the 5 legends on the Saint Talent list stared at Lin Chen at the same time. Sacred Boundary, Ancient Realm. A similar scene played out. The vast Azure City was strangely showing signs of time and space stop. All the humans stared at each other as if they had seen a ghost. The space suddenly stopped. It was simply a godlike method. Even the heaven-opening stage powerhouse guarding this place, who was a 9th-layer saint, couldn't move. When the void stopped, the voice with the surging power of providence sounded. All sword cultivators in the world listen to my orders. I am Lin Chen. This voice caused 2 curious and elegant voices to appear in the void that was frozen in silence. Lin Chen? Haha, let's go and take a look. The next moment, time and space stop was lifted. Everyone in Azure City immediately regained their freedom. Everyone panted as if they were facing a great enemy. Even the heaven-opening powerhouse overseeing Azure revealed an unprecedented look of fear and shock. Could it be a Saint King? No, there shouldn't be such a terrifying Saint King. Could it be God? Chapter 1736. Ancient Sword City. Jian Qingqing stroked a strand of his red hair and stared into the distance. He felt the changes in his sword will and murmured to himself, "My sword will is very beautiful. Lin Chen, you must be safe." Then, Jian Qingqing turned around and said indifferently, "We have received the agreed signal. Prepare to retreat." "Yes, young lady. Everything is ready. Start moving. We have taken what we can and burned what we can't. All the belongings in Sword City have been taken, including the 3rd grade and 4th grade forces of the mystic domain that Sir Lin Chen ordered. Take off." Seeing their granddaughter take charge of everything on her own, the 3 elders were moved to tears. Their granddaughter was good at everything, but the grandson-in-law she liked was a little too strong. Who would have thought that our Ice Heart Palace would go from a small 3rd grade force to where we are today? A few years ago, we were still worried about whether our sect's core cultivation technique could be perfected to the orange rank. Who would have thought that today we would usher in the most important turning point in the history of the sacred boundary, if not for the true disciples descending to the mortal realm to befriend Lin Chen and bring Yueqi into the sect, we would have already been reduced to ashes in this catastrophe. The 3 grand elders of Ice Heart Palace sighed in their hearts. Ice Heart Palace's palace master smiled softly. "That's why we say that choice is greater than effort. An inadvertent choice in the mortal world has changed the future of our Ice Heart Palace. As Lin Chen said, by giving the mortals a chance to survive, we will always be able to preserve a wisp of humanity's flame." Everyone began to move. Ling Yueqi and Shang Guanju led Ice Heart Palace and Divine Flame Palace to retreat. After this battle, the situation of the sacred boundary would change greatly in advance. According to Lin Chen, before the outcome of the battle with the various forces was decided, the sacred boundary was not a place they could stay in. This was a great battle that those below the heaven-opening realm were not qualified to participate in. Zi Qianqiu formed a seal with his hands and struck the void. Thousands of talismans and formations soared into the sky and burned into flames, transforming into a golden lion that soared through the sky. Everywhere it passed, a unique spatial passageway was opened up. Then, Jiang Taishu waved the carefree flag and pushed it forward with one hand. The heaven-burning ancient seal in his palm covered the space tunnel. "Everyone, this old man has already concealed the heavenly secrets of this spatial passage. Please hurry up and be on your way." Jiang Taishu transmitted his voice to the others. This time, everyone's destination was one of the important inheritance sites of the Immortal Dawn sect. The land of inheritance of the Immortal Dawn sect had a place that concealed the secrets of the heavens. As long as one could reach the place where the Celestial Dawn sect had fallen, it would be an absolutely safe area. No fortune-teller or expert would be able to pry into its location. Everyone would be safe if they stayed there. On the 3rd day after the Sword Domain's providence was liberated, Saber Domain, a 9th grade sect, Phaseless Saber Palace. There were thousands of pavilions here, and each one of them was shaped like a sharp knife, revealing its sharpness. Today, the Saber Palace's array was opened, and streaks of saber chi roared and roamed like cloud dragons, slashing through the void. The Phaseless Saber Palace was also one of the strongest 9th grade sects in the Saber Domain. Since the primordial era, it was the only Heaven Butcher Saber Saint who had entered the spirit of saber intent. The Phaseless Saber Palace was also one of the top 10 sects on the Saint Talent list. It also had a deep relationship with the other top 10 sects on the Saint Talent list. It was truly an unshakable giant sect. However, today was the first time the Phaseless Saber Palace had entered a state of alert. It was all because a legend had appeared out of nowhere and broken the balance of countless eras. He had challenged the Martial God family, Holy Prison, Genesis Alliance, and even released the providence of the Sword Domain. Even if there was only a 1 in 1,000 chance of such a character, the Phaseless Saber Palace had to be on guard. Heaven Butcher Saber Saint, Nangong Jichen, appeared in the hall of the Saber Palace. He had fierce eyes and sharp eyebrows. He was majestic without being angry. His purple-gold robe released surging saber intent like a dragon. As he shuttled through the void, he split open the vast great Tao. The surrounding void was surrounded by his saber intent, shattering the space and turning it into nothingness. Saber intent entered the spirit of saber intent, and his thoughts were instantaneous. If he activated his saber intent to move, he would be even faster than the majority of orange-tier intermediate movement techniques. Nangong Jichin said coldly, "I told you to be on guard. Where are they?" A black-robed saber king with a cold expression cupped his hands and said, "Brother Jichin, we have already summoned all the Saint Kings outside. I'm afraid we will be able to rush back to the saber domain in less than 7 days." Nangong Jichin narrowed his eyes. 7 days? Previously, I received the results of the divination master. The person who dealt with the sky-piercing Sword King has already disappeared from Sword Domain. Who knows what he'll do next? Another white-robed saber king was elegant and graceful. He leisurely poured himself a cup of hot tea, took a sip, and smiled casually. "I feel that Lord Nangong is a bit too cautious. That brat Chong indeed has extraordinary means to deal with Zhao Lingtian and destroy the Eternal Sword sect. However, the price he will pay will not be small." The third golden-armored saber king said with a boorish smile. "That's right. We all know just how great of a price it would take to kill a saint ruler at the same level as us, let alone an expert at the same level as Sir Nangong. He's probably still hiding in some corner to heal, praying that we don't discover him," Jianchen said with a sigh. Nangong Jichin frowned slightly. However, the seriousness between his brows did lessen a bit. Just as the protectors said, to kill a saint king in the same realm as them, the price they had to pay was too high. Fighting 2 domains in a row? He Linchen did not have this ability. Moreover, they did not have any grudges with Linchen. There was even less reason to look for them. Nangong Jichin said indifferently, "Even so, just in case, from today onwards, you will need to oversee the headquarters for more than 3 eras. I have already informed Xian Yuan to return as soon as possible." The elegant white-robed saber king stood up. The corner of his mouth raised into an evil smile. "Oversee the saber palace? Hee, no problem. I can go to the Yi clan and find some women to play with. Recently, I have been traveling to several spatial coordinates. It has been very tiring." Immediately, an elder brought 3 naked beauties in front of the white-robed saber king. The 3 women's skin was as white as mutton jade. They had beautiful eyebrows and beautiful heads. Their beauty was enough to cause the downfall of a country. However, the strange thing was that each of them had a collar around their neck. There were different numbers engraved on it, such as 282, 351, and so on. The 3 women's eyes lost their light. They stood in front of the white-robed saber king like puppets, trembling with fear. The black-robed saber king glanced at him and said indifferently, "Don't die on the bellies of women." The white-robed saber king sneered. "Yi clan's trash, can you call them women? They are just a bunch of tools." The golden-armored saber king stood up and sneered. "Rest assured, Palace Master, Lin Chun does not have the guts to come. If he dares to come to the saber region, I will call him father." Bang! Bang! The formless saber palace suddenly shook. There was a violent earthquake and 2 explosions came from the outside. The 4 kings immediately used their saber intent to investigate. At this time, a yellow-robed elder ran in from outside the saber palace and said in a trembling voice, "Protectors, Palace Master, someone outside wants to see you." Nangong Jichin frowned. "Who? Someone dares to come to my saber palace and behave atrociously?" The yellow-robed elder trembled as he bowed and said in a trembling voice, "He said he is a black horse takeout. He delivers everything quickly. Delivering people's heads is also fast." Nangong Jichin. Chapter 1737. As soon as the yellow-robed elder finished speaking, A young man's frivolous laughter came from outside the palace. A professional team has come uninvited. Golden light shone as the golden light split the sky and earth. The sword light was like a crescent moon as it slashed through the main hall of the formless saber palace. Rumble! The entire formless saber palace fell and collapsed, causing the disciples and elders of the formless saber palace to be shocked. What's going on? Someone still managed to sneak in when the array was fully activated? Who dared to come to the formless saber palace to cause trouble? Most importantly, the main hall of the Saber Palace was protected by a paracelestial-level saber intent. A normal Sage King should not be able to shake the Saber Palace. Nangong Jichin waved his hand, and the saber wind swept up all the debris. His gaze was as cold as a knife as he stared at the silver-robed figure in the void. The moment he recognized the newcomer, Nangong Jichin said coldly, "Lin Chen, Fong Ling, Lang Fanyun. You actually dared to come to my saber region." Lin Chen? The other 3 saber kings were shocked. Damn it, this kid actually dared to come. How could there be such a fearless person in the world? No normal person would dare to challenge the strongest forces of the saber region and saber region for several days consecutively. Not to mention taking action. He actually dared to come. Damn it, if it weren't for Face, I would really call him father with this courage. Is he confident, or is he going to fight to the death? Does he want to die for all the saber Dao in the world? How could there be such a great person in this world? The 3 saber kings' expressions instantly turned serious, completely different from their previous disdain and contempt. It was replaced by a solemn and calm expression. The 3 saber kings were all veteran sage kings who had been famous for thousands of years. They knew that if the other party did not come, it would be fine. In this way, a tough battle was unavoidable. Underestimating the enemy would only lead to destruction. Lin Chen carried the demon slayer spear on his shoulder and looked around. He saw many naked and chained women being led by the Saber Palace elders like livestock. When Lin Chen's gaze finally landed on Nangong Jichin, he asked in an extremely calm manner, "Is the Nangong family responsible for the current state of the Yi family?" Nangong Jichin was stunned. Just as he was about to ask Lin Chen about his motive for attacking his formless Saber Palace, he spoke first. Nangong Jichin shook his head and laughed in spite of himself. "Could it be that you're here to uphold justice for the Yi family? Lin Chen, you can't be a friend of justice, right? Ha ha ha, the Yi clan is just a subsidiary of my Nangong family, a useless dog. Now that this dog is useful, it's all thanks to the good fortune of our ancestors." He smiled casually and said in a natural tone, "It's the Yi family's honor to be pregnant with my Nangong family's child. The bloodline of a god was not something that anyone could possess. Even if they become dogs, they will be the most honorable dogs, wagging their tails and begging for mercy. They will become the loyal dogs of the Nangong family." Hearing this, Lin Chen's expression gradually darkened. Aside from Elder Xianyu, who was still a little indifferent, everyone around Lin Chen had anger in their eyes. Lin Pingyan, who was always cheerful and mischievous, had a cold and murderous look on her face. The surging poison dragon coiled above her head, and the whistling disaster aura transformed into a storm that was about to take shape, causing the 3 kings to feel a great pressure. At this moment, Lin Pingyan finally had the appearance of a painful disaster. She only wanted these fellows to die as painfully as possible. Nangong Jichin suddenly said, "Isn't it natural for the strong to play with the weak? Lin Chen, you attacked my formless Saber Palace just to let your man, Lang Fanyun, enter the realm of Saber Intent Transcendent Realm. I can open the door of Providence and let him enter to break through the realm of Saber Intent Transcendent Realm. How about it? I can also give you 2 more 8th-grade sabers as a sign of friendship. You and I aren't mortal enemies, so there's no need to end up like Zhao Lingtian, right?" At this point, Nangong Jichin's tone was firm. "You used a lot of killer moves to kill Zhao Lingtian, right? If you fight with the formless saber palace again, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape unscathed. Lin Chen suddenly smiled. Originally, I wanted to question you about sealing off the Providence, but now I've changed my mind. All of you indeed deserve to die thoroughly. Lin Chen's shoulders shook, and 6 beams of divine light descended from the sky. 7 phantom doppelgangers appeared at the same time. Lin Chen already knew that Jiang Taishu and the others had safely evacuated. Since that was the case, he didn't need to leave his doppelgangers there for the time being. He was going to go all out today and destroy the culprits of the formless Saber Palace and the Nangong family. 15 minutes, Lin Chen didn't want to waste any time. You're courting death. The golden-armored Saber King drew his saber and slashed out 10 saber light storms, enveloping Lin Chen and the others. Roar! The poison dragon roared. The purple-brown poison dragon's power crushed everything in its path and destroyed the golden-armored Saber King's peerless saber attack. Lin Pingan's face was as cold as ice. She pointed her slender fingers, and the calamity storm in the sky descended, a halberd formed by calamity energy. Holding the calamity poison halberd, Lin Pingan's body was as fast as lightning. She swept up a violent calamity storm and rushed toward the golden-armored Saber King. The sharp halberd stabbed toward the golden-armored Saber King. He retreated step by step and said with a frown, "Suffering calamity right from the start? Damn it, what kind of monster is with this kid?" Clang! The saber and sword clashed. On the other side, Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun blocked the Heaven Butcher Saber King, Nangong Jichen head-on. Lang Fanyun's injuries were healed by Lin Chen in a short period of time. He was already 90% healed. Nangong Jichen's expression was gloomy as he held his saber and blocked the two of them. He gritted his teeth and said, "Godlike sword intent. Fong Ling, you actually broke through." Fong Ling said coldly, "Don't think that you're better than others just because you control the saber domain's destiny. Fanyun and I walked in front of the two of you back then. Now, the debt that you have to pay will not be any less." Dream on. Nangong Jichen suddenly shook. His saber intent swept across the sky and blasted toward the two of them. Fong Ling unleashed his godlike sword intent. Lang Fanyun was unwilling to fall behind. His saber intent was like a ferocious tiger released from its cage. The three's intents were like 3 ancient beasts fighting together. Nangong Jichen's saber intent was like a real dragon, Fong Ling's sword intent was like an azure dragon, and Lang Fanyun's saber intent was like the most ferocious tiger. Its terrifying sharpness cut the heaven and earth into countless pieces. The entire formless Saber Palace began to collapse. "Everyone in the Saber Palace, listen up. You must stop Lin Chen at all costs," Nangong Jichen shouted coldly. Within the formless Saber Palace, the other 2 Saint King Supreme Elders immediately moved and flashed toward Lin Chen's direction. Elder Xian Yu waved her sleeves and slapped her slender jade-like hands. When she pushed back the 2 Saint Kings, she said coldly, "Lin Chen, go quickly. Leave these guys to me." Elder Xian Yu alone not only blocked the 2 Saint Kings, she even blocked many high-level experts of the formless Saber Palace outside the Saber Palace. "Thank you, Senior." Lin Chen and all his clones instantly moved. The 3 phantom clones used their movement techniques and faced the 2 Saber Kings head-on. These 2 had comprehended the Deshang saber intent. Although they were far from Lang Fanyun, their cultivation was still very troublesome. Lin Chen's 3 clones could only block them. Xiao Ling was like a white rainbow on the battlefield. When she swept past the Saber Palace, she quietly rescued the Yi Clan lady. Lin Chen stepped on a cloud shadow and charged towards the back of the formless Saber Palace while riding on the heavenly light. He could sense that the gate of providence was there. Chi! Bang! Suddenly, there was a shocking sound, and the sky split open without any warning. The majestic and peerless saber intent split open the universe. The terrifying saber intent slashed out a path covered with golden light. On the golden path, as if it came from the 9 heavens, a young man in snow-white clothes walked toward him. He carried a saber on his back and had an imposing appearance. His cold saber brows flashed with a murderous saber intent. Lin Chen narrowed his eyes. This was another peerless Saint Talent on the Saint Talent ranking. Chapter 1738. Lin Chen felt an unprecedented pressure on the golden path. This pressure is not inferior to Yingjufeng's. In fact, it's even stronger. Lin Chen immediately prepared himself. With the divine dragon's possession, his pure strength broke through 1,000,000 Zun force. Without a doubt, this person must be one of the top 10 on the Saint Talent list. Young Master Xianyuan is back. Ha ha ha, Lin Chen is dead for sure. How dare he come to my sword region? He will know what cruelty is later. Young Master Xianyuan is ranked 8th on the Saint Talent list. How can Lin Chen be compared to him? He's not even fit to carry young Master's shoes. Among the formless sword palace's upper echelons, many of the Nangong family's members had their morale boosted. It was as if Nangong Xianyuan was a god in their hearts. Nangong Xianyuan raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly. You are Lin Chen? How dare you? It was worth it to use the divine water of time and space to rush back. I didn't expect you to have the guts to challenge both the sword region and sword region. The divine water of time and space could be used to teleport back to an area through multiple planes. It was extremely valuable and rare. Even someone as powerful as the 10th on the Saint Talent list could not use it as he wished. Nangong Xianyuan sensed the abnormality in the Sword Palace and teleported back with a suspicious attitude. He did not expect Lin Chen to really dare to attack. Lin Chen said with a mocking smile, "Arrogance is my way of doing things. Acting tough is one of my basic skills. Surprising people is my style. If I'm handsome enough, I can really do whatever I want." Nangong Xianyuan sneered. So this is a wild dog that changed its home halfway? Arrogant. In my eyes, you are just a nouveau riche. Clang. A sharp aura was pointed at Lin Chen. Nangong Xianyuan held the 9th grade sacred sword, Heavenly Genius's flowing blade. His sword will rolled toward Lin Chen to crush him. His sword will was at the peak of the great accomplishment stage. He was only one step away from Lang Fanyun's stage. Nangong Xianyuan stepped forward and stood in front of Lin Chen, guarding the sword region's gate of destiny alone. Lin Chen immediately activated the War God set. 5-piece Ares set. With a single thought, the 5-piece God of War set attached itself to Lin Chen's body. This time, Lin Chen's pure strength soared to over 5,000,000 venerable ones. Last time, when Yingjufeng activated her divine bird bloodline and fought Lin Chen even had to combine his true body and a phantom doppelganger to delay her. The young sword saint, who was also in the top 10 of the Saint Talent ranking, could only be stronger. Although Lin Chen now had extraordinary Saint King realm combat power, there was still a big gap between him and the top 10 on the Saint Talent list. Ordinary means were useless against them. The only way to end the battle quickly was to use the War God set. At this moment, the two of them seemed to be talking and laughing, but in fact, they had entered a highly focused state of preparation for battle. Regardless of how the battle around them turned the world upside down, the two of them only had eyes for each other. Normally, in such a situation, both sides only had eyes for each other. If they weren't about to start a war, then something very overboard was about to happen. When the two of them were confronting each other, a Saint King Realm's Supreme Elder rushed out of Elder Xian Yu's line of defense. The Saint King Realm's Supreme Elder rushed into the Gate of Providence and floated in the air. He completely opened the space enchantment inside the Gate of Providence and was ready to fight. One of them escaped? We can only leave it to Lin Chen. Elder Xian Yu frowned. Although she was the chief elder of the Divine Flame Palace, she was still unable to fight against the entire upper echelon of the formless Saber Palace alone. Nangong Xianyuan was not in a hurry to fight Lin Chen. He seemed to be waiting for the situation to change as he spoke slowly. Lin Chen, right? I heard some rumors about you when I was in seclusion. Some people described you as a creator who surpassed the sages of the human clan. Some said you were the only one who broke the balance of the Saint Talent list. Some even said that you were a rising star who surpassed the gods of creation. Lin Chen smiled casually. These words often make me wonder who was the one who praised me so much back then and leaked the news. Praised you? Nangong Xianyuan seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world. Ha 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 ha, Lin Chen, no matter how much praise you have in the sacred boundary, you are just a nouveau riche in our eyes. I'm Nangong Xianyuan, 8th on the Saint Talent list. I'm not on the same level as Ying Jiufeng, whom you fought before. What bullsh** T-God's bloodline. A true expert doesn't need to rely on such things. We on the Saint Talent list are born to be the strongest. Nangong Xianyuan stretched out a finger. He was extremely confident and calm, as if he was telling a fact that was about to happen. One strike. I only need one strike to deal with you. Suddenly, Lin Chen also stretched out a finger. One punch. I'll defeat you. I only need one punch too. Clang. Nangong Xianyuan raised his saber. The indestructible aura of gung metal entwined like a dragon. Golden light filled the sky, and its sharpness was unparalleled. Lin Chen retracted his fist, and golden light flashed continuously. After the divine dragon broke through the power level of 1 million venerables, he could calmly break through the power level of 7 million venerables with the 5-piece Ares set. He no longer had the burden like before. He could fight to his heart's content. Rumble. Treading on cold cast snow, thousands of miles brighten. Nangong Xianyuan raised his saber and swung it. His saber-intent sword, and a dragon-like saber-intent entwined around his saber and shot out. The rainbow-like golden saber aura split the clouds and the sky. It seemed to flash in an instant as it slashed toward Lin Chen. What a showy move. Lin Chen raised his fist toward the sky. Pure and violent power turned into a beam of golden light that pierced through the sky. The two beams of golden light collided. Lin Chen actually used pure strength to take on Nangong Xianyuan's saber attack head-on. Chi. Bang. 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 The saber intent dissipated, and the golden light disappeared. The aftershocks from both sides uprooted the entire phaseless Saber Palace, and the Earth's crust collapsed. The phaseless Saber Palace's upper echelon's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. In this move, both sides actually fought to a draw. Nangong Xianyuan took 7 steps back, and his eyes narrowed. There's something wrong with this kid's golden armor. What a violent pure strength. It's not inferior to that barbarian's. However, fighting with Nangong Xianyuan was not Lin Chen's goal. Lin Chen suddenly transmitted his voice with a smile. Thank you, Nangong family, for sending me a spatial coordinate. Nangong Xianyuan. Pa. Lin Chen snapped his fingers. Target locked successfully. The host has activated the Shifting Shadows talent, consuming 1,800,000 top-grade talent points. One of Lin Chen's doppelgangers disappeared in an instant. The sage ruler elder near the door of Providence also disappeared, and he suddenly flashed to the spot where the doppelgangers had disappeared. And the doppelgangers' positions just happened to switch places with him. What? Nangong Xianyuan's pupils constricted then, as if it had been premeditated. All the doppelgangers that were fighting with the 2 Saber Kings disappeared. The phantom divine light fell like flowers, and when all 7 doppelgangers reappeared, they had already arrived in front of the door of Providence. At this moment, all the doppelgangers' holy power was drained, and the doppelgangers held the annihilation energy of the 9-colored brilliant star cluster like lanterns, magnificent and magnificent. This scene stunned all the Saber Kings, and a chill went straight to the top of their heads. What the F***ck is going on? Lin Chen looked at Nangong Xianyuan and said with a mocking smile. Nangong, pretty boy, your flirting will eventually become a knife that stabs you. Nangong Xianyuan was shocked and angry. Damn it, I've been tricked. Chapter 1739. This scene put on a show for all the powerhouses present. Did he complete the spatial position swap in an instant? And it was under the premise that the spatial barrier was not broken. The phaseless Saber Palace was guarded by powerhouses all year round. In addition, Nangong Xianyuan was about to comprehend Saber intent in the Gate of Providence. The Gate of Providence, which was equivalent to the Saber domain, had to provide another Nangong Xianyuan who was about to break through to the immortal realm in a short period of time. As a result, he did not leave behind a large amount of sword intent to guard the Gate of Providence like Zhao Lingtian of the Eternal Sword Sect. Nangong Xianyuan had deliberately delayed the pace and let a Saint King Realm Elder enter the vicinity of the Gate of Providence first to activate the internal spatial barrier before starting the battle with Lin Chen. Little did he know that he was too smart for his own good. Lin Chen's shifting shadows could achieve the spatial position swap of a designated living being. This was simply giving Lin Chen coordinates. If Nangong Xianyuan had fought with Lin Chen as soon as they met and had not arranged for people to enter the Gate of Providence, he might not have been able to defeat this tough character who was ranked 8th on the Saint Talent list today. As for the Heaven Butcher Saber King and Nangong Jichen, who were fighting Fong Ling, when they witnessed this moment, they felt a bone-deep fear and regret. It was too late for everything to fail. Lin Chen looked up to the sky and laughed, overflowing with arrogance. Everyone, it's good that you're all good. This gift is for all the Saber Masters and beautiful ladies in the sacred boundary. Saber Domain's Gate of Providence, open for me. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Almost at the same time as Lin Chen laughed wildly, a 9-colored aurora instantly bloomed from the phaseless Saber Palace. Bang, bang, bang. The continuous destructive energy glowed with 9-colored brilliance. The destructive aurora's aftermath was like a spiral storm, razing all the buildings within a radius of millions of miles in the phaseless Saber Palace to the ground. 7 moves. Annihilation Starburst, enhanced by instant light and shadow. This move had completely become the beginning of the turning point in the history of the Saber domain. The terrifying energy aftermath forced Nangong Xianyuan back. Even someone as strong as him could not save the situation in time. 10,000 strands of the power of Providence soared into the sky like flying dragons, attracting the senses of all Saber cultivators. The infinite power of Providence spread out from the north, south, east, and west at an overwhelming speed and scattered crazily. The power of Providence was like a wild horse, like a young man who had lost his virginity, and crazily output. Nangong Xianyuan, Nangong Xianyuan, Nangong Xianyuan, Nangong Xianyuan, the Saber Domain's Saber. Let's fight. I'll choose the dark horse to fight for me. Release the power, get one free. The voice transmission spread through the entire Saint's world along with the karmic luck. Without a doubt, the Saber Domain was the first to cause an uproar. Nangto the to the twos to be. Gathering Providence was no small matter. Just the first step alone required the gathering of more than 8 top-notch spiritual plants of Providence. Furthermore, it would take a lot of manpower and effort to condense the Providence back. It was not something that could be done overnight. Lin Chen, I'll take your head. Just as Nangong Jichen was about to fly into a rage and leave the battlefield to attack Lin Chen's position, a continuous rain of saber light was abnormally sharp. With a swift slash, a terrifying saber intent instantly split open the great Tao of space. Nangong Jichen was forced to block with his saber. Clang! The saber light dissipated, and Nangong Jichen took a few steps back. Boom, boom, boom. The peerless saber intent was like a true dragon soaring in the sky. With a saber in hand, Lang Fanyun looked down at Nangong Jichin. Fong Ling smiled. So fast. You're too fast. Do you not want to fall behind me? Lang Fanyun held his saber and grinned for the first time. Because I'll only be stronger than you. Fong Ling pointed his sword at Nangong Jichin. Lang Fanyun laughed. Then, let's finish these few elimination rounds for my lord. Let's leave our friendly match for last. Nangong Jichin shuddered. He was clearly stronger than Lang Fanyun, but he felt as if the respect and fear hidden in his heart had been awakened. He recalled how he used to follow Lang Fanyun for guidance. Now, the senior that he respected and feared all those years ago had returned. Nangong Jichin took a small step back. Lang Fanyun shouted coldly, "Look at me, bastard!" Nangong Jichin flew into a rage. "Damn it, you've just broken through to saber intent. What are you so arrogant for?" Fong Ling slashed with his sword and laughed. "Let's see if you can stop the two of us." Kaboom! Bam! The three of them turned into three streaks of light in the sky. Saber light and sword light were endless. Saber intent and sword intent shot everywhere, turning everything in their path into chaos. On the other side, the two Saber Kings and Nangong Xianyuan attacked Lin Chen furiously. With a thought, Lin Chen's 7 clones descended once again. Host consumed 5,600,000 sacred runes to activate the Phantom Rune again. Just as Lin Chen was about to fight to the death with the other party, buzz! Time and space suddenly came to a standstill. Even Lin Chen couldn't move. Nangong Xianyuan and the rest were horrified. Other than the legendary true gods, no one in the world could suppress them. "Young lady, the guy you said you wanted to protect is him, right?" At this moment, Yun Yi's elegant female voice reverberated through the air. Lin Chen froze. Yiqing Wu and Shen Lingshuang's silhouettes appeared out of thin air. Yiqing Wu floated towards Lin Chen, her beautiful eyes sparkling as she smiled slyly. "Lin Chen, how does it feel to be protected by me?" Lin Chen couldn't move. He said in shock, This is your doing?" Shen Lingshuang shook her head like a rattledrum. "No, it's 2 seniors from the realm of the gods. She wants to take us away." As soon as she said that, all the experts present felt as if they were struck by lightning. Realm of the gods? 2 hours ago, the Sword Domain's providence had been released, and everyone in Ancient Sword City had retreated. Jian Qingqing was in the Ancient Sword City, and she was the last group to leave. Jian Qingqing turned to look at Yiqing Wu and Shen Lingshuang and asked with a smile, "Is there anything else you didn't bring?" Yiqing Wu smiled charmingly. "Yes, I didn't bring your lover. Do you want me to help you get him back?" Jian Qingqing rolled his eyes at her and said, "Sister, don't laugh at me. This bad guy is busy." Yiqing Wu smiled faintly. "No matter how busy you are, you will still have time, right? Do you want me to arrange something interesting for you?" Shen Lingshuang was like a curious baby. "What do you mean by something interesting?" Yiqing Wu smiled and said, "Go ask your master. Ask him what game he likes to play with your big sister by Ruoyang." Shen Lingshuang nodded seriously. "Then I will ask him seriously the next time I see him. He didn't even bring me along when he had a game." Yiqing Wu covered her mouth to hold back her laughter. Jian Qingqing helplessly held his forehead. This little demon empress really couldn't be at peace for a moment. At this time, an elegant voice echoed in the sky. "I didn't expect that the little sacred boundary of the human race would have the daughter of the martial god." Everyone immediately prepared for battle. "Who is it?" Jian Qingqing shouted coldly with his sword. 2 beautiful figures slowly appeared in the ancient sword city and slowly walked over. The other party's words were shocking. "You don't have to panic. We are humans from the realm of the gods. We were just passing by to look for someone and coincidentally met you." Jian Qingqing's pupils shrank. "People from the realm of the gods." Chapter 1740. The two ladies were elegant and beautiful. They were dressed in green palace attire and wore a veil to hide their faces. Their temperament was as elegant as a lotus, elegant and beautiful. Their exquisite figures were still charming, and there was a kind of transcendence that surpassed all living beings. The other lady was dressed in a starry dress. Her eyebrows were beautiful and her eyes were like a painting. Her autumn pupils seemed to contain a galaxy of stars. Her body was embellished with faint starry divine light. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens, unique and extraordinary. Strangely, the lady in the starry dress had her left eye closed and only one eye was open. Her quiet and dignified posture made people feel relaxed and happy with a sense of mystery. Yi Qingwu felt the uniqueness of the two ladies. The higher the cultivation between people, the more temperament they would have. The temperament of the two ladies gave her a unique feeling that she had never felt before. It was as if she was used to seeing beautiful mountains and clear waters. Suddenly, one day, she saw the most beautiful fairyland in the world. The mountains were still mountains, but they were not just mountains. It was this strong sense of déjà vu. The lady in the green palace attire smiled elegantly at Yi Qingwu. Your bloodline is the blood of the mysterious lady of the heavenly realm. Without the help of the special energy of the heavenly realm, it can only be activated by the pure yang energy of a man after sex. You should be very clear about your situation now. Your life is in danger. Jian Qingqing was shocked. Life was in danger? Could it be that Yi Qingwu's life was already facing Jian Qingqing's gaze? Yi Qingwu evaded with a rare guilty conscience. Yi Lixue sighed faintly. Jian Qingqing questioned, Sister Qingwu, why didn't you say it? Yi Qingwu said helplessly, so what if I say it? I don't have a man I like. Then what about Lin Chen? Jian Qingqing almost subconsciously called out the name of the man in his heart. The two ladies from the heavenly realm looked at each other curiously. Lin Chen again? He is my good friend. I don't want to burden him. Yi Qingwu evaded his gaze. Jian Qingqing said unwillingly, he has done so many things for you. How could you hide such an important matter from him? Yi Qingwu was speechless. Suddenly, the lady in the green palace attire flicked her finger and a mysterious stream of light entered between Yi Qingwu's eyebrows. Boom! The holy light exploded and the sky. Yi Qingwu's cultivation suddenly skyrocketed. Even her holy power had transformed by several levels. Most importantly, the bloodline of God hidden in the depths of her body had also been activated. Yi Qingwu was shocked and at a loss as she said, This is? The beautiful woman smiled. I activated your bloodline for you. Just now, you were thinking of someone, which calmed your bloodline. I think this person must be very important to you. Yi Qingwu bit her red lips and softly replied with an. At this moment, the beautiful woman in palace attire looked at Shen Lingshuang with a solemn expression. Shen Lingshuang stared at her in surprise. Meow meow meow? Back then, when the martial god king's granddaughter went missing, many powers in the divine realm fell into chaos. Countless people thought that the martial god king's enemy had gone into hiding, but who would have thought that she was lost in the mortal world like Xingchen? However, her bloodline wasn't a match for Xingchen's, so the mortal world and the human world didn't collapse. Then, the lady in the palace attire walked to Shen Lingshuang and smiled at her. What's your name? Shen Lingshuang shrank back. Lingshuang, Shen Lingshuang. The lady in the palace attire was shocked. Then, she said, are you willing to go back to the heavenly realm with me? I know your background. I can help you find your parents. Shen Lingshuang's beautiful eyes immediately lit up as she said in surprise and joy, You can help me find my family members? You know my background? The lady in the palace attire nodded and smiled. Then, she ran her fingers through her hair and smiled at Yi Qingwu. Of course, that includes you. Your Empyrean maiden bloodline talent is far too much of a waste in the human saint's world. Why don't you come with me to the heavenly realm and show your potential? At this time, Shen Lingshuang pointed at her and said timidly, No. I can't make the decision. I have to ask my master. Without my master's permission, I can't go so far. The lady in the palace attire said, Then, can you take us to your master? If your master doesn't allow it, we won't force you. As people of the God realm, under the premise that we don't have any special means to protect ourselves, we can't directly influence the fate of the beings of the lower realms. Otherwise, we'll suffer quite a bit of backlash. If you don't want to, we won't force you. Hearing these words and thinking about Lin Chen's current situation, Yi Qing Wu had an idea. She gave a sly smile and said, All right, then I'll bring her along to find Lin Chen and ask for the two seniors' help. Jian Qingqing wanted to say something, but Yi Qing Wu immediately gave her a look. The lady in the palace attire nodded. Okay. If that's the case, let's hurry up. We don't have much time left. The lady in the palace attire waved her sleeves and took the two girls away. Saber Region, Formless Saber Palace. After Yi Qing Wu explained the whole story, Lin Chen was stunned and his mouth was slightly open. A big shot from the heavenly realm came to find him. He looked at the two girls. He didn't know why, but the lady in the palace attire gave him a faint but wonderful feeling of intimacy. Lin Chen didn't have time to think too much. He smiled and said, Since you are thinking about my disciple's future, let's talk about it after you untie me. The lady in the palace attire shook her head. No, untie you. You'll want to kill your enemy first, right? Lin Chen was stunned. How did she know? The current situation of the space-time restriction was a great opportunity to kill Nangong Xianyuan, who was ranked 8th on the Saint Talent list. After understanding Lin Chen's intention, the lady in the palace attire said indifferently, We from the heavenly realm can't affect the fate of people from the lower realm. If they die because of us, or indirectly because of us, then we'll be in great danger when we return to the heavenly realm. The fate of the two realms isn't connected, so there'll be a big change. She looked straight at Lin Chen. So, we can only help you to leave. It's impossible to help you kill your enemy. We're not prepared to go to the lower realm. We're only here to find someone. We can't kill the people from the lower realm directly or indirectly. Lin Chen's eyes scanned the surroundings. There weren't many attribute light balls anyway, and there wasn't anything good left in the Gate of Providence of the Saber Domain. If they left, Lin Chen would benefit the most now. In the current situation, even if Lin Chen insisted on fighting to the death, there wouldn't be a good outcome. Both sides didn't have decisive battle strength. If they continued fighting, both sides would suffer. Lin Chen said, All right, take my people away. The lady in the palace attire drew a line with her slender finger. A wormhole opened, and Fang Ling and the others, including the lady from the Yi family, all disappeared. Even Lin Chen disappeared without a trace. Buzz. The next moment, the space was removed, and everyone from the phaseless Saber Palace regained their freedom. All of them revealed fearful expressions as if they had just survived a calamity. The heavenly realm, they were from the heavenly realm. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.